And we do have a chaplain in the room, please.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you today in humility and faith. We thank you for all that you've given us and the many blessings in our lives. We thank you for Burleigh County. We thank you for its citizens. We thank you for the leaders, for the workers. We thank you for the first responders who keep us safe. I pray your blessing upon them all and keep them safe. During this meeting, we ask for your guidance. We ask for strength. We ask for patience. Show us the way to govern and fill us with courage and wisdom to follow your will. Help us to remember that your love and grace and help is available to us so that we may be faithful in our service to you, to the county, to the state, and to our nation. God, again, I pray that you give us patience and understanding to face all of life's challenges with the same grace and mercy that you have for each of us. As we celebrate the holidays, may we ever be thankful for the gifts we receive, especially the greatest gifts of all, your love and forgiveness. May we be as generous as you have been to us. With thanks in our hearts, we ask these things in your name. Amen. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Chairman, Commissioners.
Appreciate that. Okay, I'll call the December 16th meeting of the Burleigh County Commission to order. First item on the agenda is roll call of members, please.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Here.
Commissioner Munson.
Here.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab. Here. Chairman Bittner.
Here. The next is the agenda, and Commissioners, I'm going to make some changes before we start. I'm going to change the order based on a couple of requests. After the consent agenda, we're going to insert 10A, which is a CO2 discussion. So I'll line that out under 10A and insert it there. Item 6 is going to change and become item 9. Item 7 is going to become item 6. Coming on down, item 9 is going to become item 7. And then under 11, under 10B, I'm going to add the words CISA report. That's a Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Administration report. Everything else will remain the same unless commissioners have anything else they want to change. I'd entertain a motion to approve the changes.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Woodcox.
Yes.
Munson.
Yes.
Bakken.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes. Motion carries. Item 4, consideration of the December 2nd, 2024 meeting minutes and bills. I have a note here that we need to refer to updated minutes due to concerns expressed about how the minutes were written. In front of you, commissioners, there's 2 separate drafts. I think essentially they're saying pretty much the same thing. It was just eliminating some unnecessary language and whatnot. I would be in favor of the ones that say Burleigh Count. Left the Y off there, Burleigh Count. So that would be Burleigh County Commission, add the Y. And I would recommend approval of those minutes unless there's any additional discussion.
Chairman, if I may, whichever one you choose to agree to, if there was a certain minutes here that did not come out of my office, I'm not comfortable putting my name on minutes that I did not oversee. So I don't know if Julie wants input on this, but if it didn't come out of my office, I can't put my name on it.
Thanks for that.
Mr. Chairman,
I had actually recommended.
where did they come from then? If they didn't come from the auditor
Other staff wrote it up.
in the auditor's office?
No.
Not in the auditor's office,
No.
okay.
I don't know when the commission got all these minutes, but obviously if there's been changes to them, you might want to take some time to review both drafts before you approve it. So I would just suggest tabling the approval of the minutes from December 2nd till the next meeting until you've had an opportunity to review both drafts.
That sounds good.
Move the table.
Second.
Motion and a second to table. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Woodcox?
Yes.
Commissioner Munson?
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. The other item would be the bills. Who reviewed the bills?
I looked at the bills, they look okay to me. Move to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the bills. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Munson?
Yes.
Bakken?
Yes.
Schwab?
Yes,
Woodcox?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. Next is a consent agenda. There's abatements and Emmons County Emergency Management Service Joint Powers Agreement. Does anybody want to pull anything off for discussion? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Bakken?
Yes.
Schwab?
yes,
Woodcox?
Yes.
Munson?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. Next is item 10A, replacing 6, CO2 discussion. A little bit of update I have in that regard, and then I'll turn it over to whoever else wants to speak on that. The attorneys representing Burleigh County have filed with the court the appeal for the Public Service Commission decision, and that was within the time frame that the law required, so just want everybody to know that that appeal has been filed. That's all I have on that. Commissioner Bakken.
Is there a representative from Summit Carbon Solutions here this evening? Anybody from Summit here this evening? Last call, anybody from Summit? All right, thank you very much. There is not.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Schwab. Go ahead.
I suppose you all the people here know who Trent Luce is.
You're not on.
Turn on your mic, please.
I assume everybody here pretty much knows who Trent Luce is. Summit Carbon Solutions sent him a threatening letter, cease and desist, on 3 specific items. He was wrong on one, on the other 2 he wasn't. And I hear this is going on in Iowa now. They don't want anything said. And I'm wondering if we shouldn't file something to the extent that Summit Carbon Solutions need to cease and desist not giving us information.
Just an update on that too. I believe State Senator Magrum also received a letter, as
Okay.
well as some other individuals that have been outspoken.
Is that right?
So, yeah, and the problem there is,
So apparently the First Amendment
we'll be next.
isn't for everybody.
But in my opinion, there's a lot that they need to cease and desist with. Lying to us about how many cars they're going to take off the road when they're creating more carbon than what they're pumping. Things like that, things that we've asked for, they are withholding information, and we need that information. And we need to know what the kill zone is, and we need to know why it is that they think they can go and roughshod over DAPL, the citizens in this county, and just have free reign, which brings up another thing. We need to know how many times they have coordinated this stuff with the state. So, do you think you could handle that, Julie, or do you want to run?
Is any of that part of disclosure with our appeal?
No, and
Okay.
that's beyond us at this point.
Well, you can't add that to the appeal, but if lawyers can sit there and write this stuff out, can't we use our attorneys to go after them and tell them to cease and desist trespassing on people's property and intimidating them?
I don't
Don't
have
you
the-
think that we should be able to do that?
I don't have an answer for that. That would be a state's attorney's question.
So I think specific landowners have already tried to prevent that in court, and it's been ruled that they are allowed to come on to survey. I think it was appealed to the Supreme Court, which also upheld it. So again, that's kind of beyond where we're at this point.
This whole thing they got is, they're selling is not CO2 pipelines, it's COS. Everyone looks at me, what is COS? Condense all, and it starts with S.
I knew better.
Okay. Anything else regarding the CO2 discussion? Did anybody else in the room want to weigh in on that?
One thing I think everybody's forgetting.
Can you identify
My
yourself?
name's Charles Tuttle. I'm a citizen of North Dakota. And I questioned Summit at a press conference, and they really didn't have a straight answer. But they do not have common carrier status, folks, and no one's attacking that. They didn't do the process that's necessary for common carrier status, and they do not have common carrier status. They have to allow others on to join in their pipeline if they're going to be considered a common carrier. And they've never opened that up, and they've never gone public with common carrier status. So that's something that you guys need to look at and attack. And the coordination between, you have to look at the election with Randy Crispin, and then the decision to go ahead, and the coordination with the Industrial Commission. You need to get all the emails. You need to get all the. We've been trying to get emails from the Public Service Commission now, but that's where you have to go, because this was all coordinated. Summit did not come in with when they wanted to reconsider. They didn't come in with anything new. They didn't give up anything. They just said they changed the pipeline map, and they're telling us that, well, we don't want people to know where the pipeline is. Well, then why are they giving us the map? Because they're afraid of a terrorist attack on the pipeline? That should also give us pause as to the danger of the pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Commissioner Schwab?
That's another thing that we need to ask them, withholding information beside their carbon footprint. Who are the terrorists that they're protecting us from? It seems like there's a lot of drones flying around the air bases and stuff over in the East Coast and the West Coast. Same thing can happen here, especially when the Chinese are involved. So the thing about it is, are they the terrorists, or are the people out there farming the land are the terrorists? I would say they are the terrorists. That's my opinion.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Bakken?
One other thing, I don't know if anybody had a chance to really dig into the Industrial Commission meeting last week that actually, they kept changing the time on it, so it made it a little difficult to try to watch. But I went through some of the notes afterwards, and one of the things that was really troubling to me is the CO2 re-education campaign, of which $300,000 of my tax dollars and our tax dollars were spent so that we could be re-educated concerning carbon sequestration. If anybody's gone through that report, and I'll equate it to carbon baiting, I guess is probably the best term for it. They've actually categorized different groups that are opposed or neutral on the pipeline and are targeting, and I don't know any other word to use other than targeting, each one of those groups, it's 11 to 13 different groups that they've focused in on. And they're building a marketing campaign around each one of those groups. Well, I've got a big problem with my tax dollars being used for that, for one. Second of all, it equates to targeting private citizens just because they may disagree with a for-profit entity to gouge U.S. taxpayers. And I've got a serious problem with that. So anybody who's not gone through the marketing campaign for the carbon re-education process, take a look at who's involved with that. Take a look at some media members, some different industries, some different state organizations, and really pay attention to whose name is on that report as part of that educational campaign.
Well, they're basically using people's tax dollars to beat up on the people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're basic.
It equates to carbon baiting, gender baiting, race baiting, whatever.
Yeah.
Now there's carbon baiting.
What I said was they're using tax dollars to promote out-of-state elitists that are never going to live here, and using them tax dollars to promote them and go against us. They are discriminating and going against us, is what I'm saying. And I don't know, consensus is around this area, everybody here in this room, and I have never heard anybody come up in this county and say they're all for this thing. So they definitely are going against the will of the people, and all I could say is it isn't over yet. Got a long ways to go.
Anybody here supportive of the project? I'm just curious.
I guess that answers that question. Okay, did anybody else wish to speak on this item?
I do.
Okay, please identify yourself for the
Hi
record.
there, I'm Tommy Collins. I'm a citizen of North Dakota. I would like to speak and address State's Attorney Lawyer and encourage the commission to have her do her job a little bit more diligent when it comes to this. She is the representative for Burleigh County. Now, you telling me when these guys are getting letters for intimidation, they're being intimidated. There's no statute against intimidating. Her office needs to take a look at what's being sent and mirror it against what our century codes are, because this is lawfare and intimidation, and I can guarantee you there are laws against intimidating people. And there are other laws. It's just going to have to dig in and do some good lawyering. They've got good lawyers. We elected Julie Lawyer to represent Burleigh County. She needs to get busy. No, sorry, ma'am. You need to get busy and do the right kind of lawyering rather than allocating your time intimidating citizens. Right now, we have a situation where we have citizens that have come out and said, don't vote for Commissioner Bittner, and her office is sending out investigators to intimidate them. They have a constitutional First Amendment right to say not to vote for Commissioner Bittner. That's how our resources are being spent in our auditor's office, and there'll be more to come. But right now, the commission, I would ask you to hold her accountable to finding a way to come up against Summit and their lawfare against our citizens and the intimidation tactics they're using. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Anybody else wish to speak
You
on
know,
this item?
the problem with
Mr. Schwab.
with what she mentioned is Summit has $1 billion to work on this and hire lawyers, and that is what they're doing to intimidate people now. Burleigh County does not have the resources to hire the lawyers they're hiring. But we do have a lawyer working on it. You can't just stop and say, well, the other county trials and stuff that Julie has to throw together and stuff, we can't stop them. Summit is just trying to wear us out. Stay strong. It isn't over, believe me.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Woodcox.
in defense of our state's attorney, Julie Lawyer, the thing you were talking about before, the letter or the email that was sent out and was during the election time and was against our chairman, that was done by a county employee on a county time with county policy, against county policy.
That is not what I was speaking of. I was speaking of citizens that are not elected officials that were actually had investigators come to their home because they made a Facebook post listing all the reasons they personally felt that Commissioner Bittner should not be elected. These are people that are citizens. They are not elected officials that she sent investigators out. That is intimidation tactics coming out of her office in collusion with the commissioner. That is happening, and that is a fact.
Hang on. I think you just combined
You're
two
just combining
separate things. I don't think you're talking
He
about.
commented on, what
He's
he
talking
commented
about-
on is what I was not
He's
speaking of.
talking
I wanted
about
to
a
clarify
text.
that.
He's talking about a text.
I understand.
And you're talking about a probable investigation regarding political action committee and names. I think you need to make sure that you're separating the two. Thank you.
Okay, again,
Thank you.
Supreme Court has found that you can have a First Amendment right to pretty much say anything you want against an elected official. Anybody without a law degree can Google what are our rights why do you think there can be attack ads and there's no defamation charges? But instead, somehow you're using county resources to go after people that say that you should not be reelected.
No, that's wrong.
There you're,
Well,
now
that
you're,
is what's
now you're
happening.
wrapping two things together.
That's not what's happening at all.
Okay, so I'm sorry, then
This is not
how
a
do you
case
know
of-
about it if you weren't involved with the second, you said a political action committee, it wasn't. It was
Because
two
I'm
citizens.
aware that there's an investigation directed at a political action committee, not individual
No,
citizens.
they're individual citizens, and they're not, and regardless,
as a political
again,
action
you're,
committee.
okay, because you don't want people boo-hoo to come out and say that you shouldn't be elected. You're using county resources to do that, and my
No.
point exactly, my point is, Commissioner Bittner, is we need to be using Julie Lawyer's office to dig in and figure out what's going on with carbon capture, not being your personal little pony show, dog show, to go out and
Okay,
fight for
you've
you
said-
and for
you've
your
said
election.
enough.
There
You've said
needs to be a
enough.
line
She
drawn
is
on
not
that.
a personal attorney for me. She doesn't represent
Okay,
me
then what, okay,
any
so
more
again,
than as a
what's
county
more
commissioner.
important?
Now,
Attacking people's First Amendment rights that are coming out against you?
Are you saying I'm
Or
attacking
do you
them?
think we should be spending those resources on fighting carbon capture? Commissioner,
We're already
you just
doing that.
mentioned that we didn't have enough resources through her office, but the kind of stuff she's spending her resources on and her time is inappropriate, and it's not the kind of
Well,
money
let
that
me-
we want to be spending. We have some big battles ahead of us.
You know, I
I-
got several calls on this, and we're getting way off the topic here, but as long as you want to exercise your rights, we do have a Hatch Act. We do have, in this county, you don't campaign on county time. Now, we're not the ones that are going to determine whether that happened. The feds are. They're investigating.
Okay, you guys,
So
just for
what
the
if- what-
record, the
so-
Hatch Act does not apply to elected officials.
That is not
This
true.
Yes,
is-
it does. Yes,
did
it does.
you know,
Okay. Again,
That's about
my
enough.
point exactly
We're
is
not gonna solve this
resources
here.
in her office or I, as a citizen, okay, it is in my opinion that the resources that Julie Lawyer's office should be using are not to be on this kind of garbage minutia versus taking on carbon, taking on Summit Carbon, taking on the real issues. We shouldn't be using her office to intimidate elected officials, namely Auditor Splanskowski, and should not be having her investigators showing up at a door of somebody who put out a political ad against Commissioner Bittner. That is a waste of the public's money when we're up against real battles. That's my opinion.
Can
Yes,
I,
sir,
can I answer
Yes,
that?
yes.
I agree with you. We shouldn't be, the county should not be wasting money on something that is not county business. And that's exactly what he did, exactly on time, on county time, on his own personal phone. It was during county hours, and absolutely, we've already had an investigation. He was proven wrong that he did it on county time, and it's been turned over to Julie Lawyer, our state's attorney, who turned it over to the feds, and they will follow up on the Hatch Act violation, which it clearly was.
Okay, so now I've got a question
Ma'am,
for every
ma'am,
one
we're
of
not
you
gonna-
guys.
we're
You
not
guys are
gonna-
elected officials, so you're
we're not
telling
gonna
me
keep on
if
going here.
anybody in this county or state want to run for an office, they're gonna lose their First Amendment right to speak out against
No.
any other elected official.
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay,
This
and
is
what
not a
county,
case of
okay,
a
that's
First Amendment right.
regardless, no county
You need to
resources
listen,
were
ma'am,
used.
ma'am, I'm going to have you removed.
You're gonna have me removed
Yes.
because I'm challenging you.
Yes.
Pipeline discussion.
CO2 pipeline discussion.
You're
CO2 pipeline discussion. Again.
you're pirating the microphone, and you're wrong.
Okay, regardless,
The-
you
the
guys
state's
said you were
attorney
gonna
is
bring it
doing
up.
her job.
Did you bring it up or
Kelly?
did I bring it up? I just simply said the resources, we're talking about carbon
Thanks.
solutions.
Thanks for sharing your opinion.
The resources
Let
should
me
be
introduce you to the
allocated
Burleigh
towards the
County
right
Sheriff.
kind of fights. That is my
Cut this
point.
off. No.
Welcome.
My name is Curtis Junt.
Kurt, could you get back to the pipeline?
I am kind of sad I just lost that 10 minutes of my life, but I have only one thing to say about that whole diatribe, and that you all are a team, and anybody that's working and causing dissension among the team is unethical, it's not moral, and you need to get it stopped, you need to figure it out, you guys. Period. Shouldn't be happening. Sit down and talk it out, work it out. You guys have been an amazing county. We have one of the best counties in the state, in my opinion, especially when it comes to the CO2 pipeline fiasco. But sit down and talk it out and work it out and stop with this child classroom BS. So we don't have to sit through that again. That was awful. In the filing on the appeal, I just have a question. Are any of you aware that it's maybe been the 3rd of December? Yeah, I think the 3rd of December that Summit filed on the docket in South Dakota their plume dispersion analysis. Are any of you aware of that?
Yes.
Read it in
Heard
paper.
Well,
That's it.
16 pages. So that's out there. I went through it.
I think they use, 47 degrees?
Yeah, I mean,
Temperature.
this is very complex, and they go through a lot of explanation of their assumptions. And all I could think about was the terrain that we have in Emmons-Burleigh County. So this really doesn't, that plume dispersion model analysis doesn't really reflect the terrain. It's pretty much a above ground spatial, the plume moves in an egg shape, kind of a symmetrical thing, right? We know in reality that's just not going to happen. If this pipeline ruptures east of Bismarck, well, let's even go north and east as you go up past Heritage Ridge, and it ruptures to the east. We all know. I mean, this is not. You don't have to be a physicist or an engineer. We all know that CO2 is going to follow Burnt Creek to Hay Creek, but it's going to make its way, and it's going to head right over to the river valley. So this plume dispersion model, all I can tell you is that some of the assumptions, they use an average wind temperature for the state of South Dakota of 11 miles per hour. I think North Dakota, our average is about double that. I think that's what I looked up. They used an average temperature of 47 degrees, which is close to the average temperature in South Dakota. North Dakota is about 43 degrees. But what significance does that have? Because again, you don't have to be a physicist. You don't even have to be a high school graduate to answer the question. Air is comprised of 78, 79% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, 0.04% CO2, water vapor making up the other less than 1%. But what happens to that air the colder the temperature gets? Every high school student is going to tell you what happens, especially if they live at home in the basement. They know it's colder down there. Cold air is more dense. It's heavier. When temperature warms up, air is lighter, less dense. So they use a temperature of 47 degrees. Well, what about 0 degrees? What about 20 below zero? What about 20 below zero on a winter morning when there isn't a breeze at all? Very dense, very slow moving, and it's not going to move in an egg shape. It's going to follow the terrain. So the only modeling, and it is extremely complex and it probably is costly, that's going to take in the terrain and the landscape surrounding is going to be the computational fluid dynamic model called CFD. Now, they go through a whole ditty in their plume dispersion analysis, more or less refuting why that's not practical to use. But I want to take you back to the PHMSA public hearing that was held in Des Moines, Iowa, May 30th and 31st of 2023. And coming out of that, I watched both days. Some of the things that came out of that in testimony, some of these things are from PHMSA themselves, had to do with modeling. When you start applying all the variables, dozens of variables along the entire pipeline route, you have hundreds, if not thousands. It doesn't say thousands, it says it raises exponentially, which hundreds raised to an exponent starts getting into the thousands, doesn't it? But I want to also share with you what PHMSA announced during those 2 days. PHMSA is sponsoring university research to develop a computational fluid dynamics modeling system that would improve threat identifications and be cost effective, but it might not be complete for years. Okay, so in our appeal, and you're going to get the other side, you're going to get Summit showing you something similar to what I saw in South Dakota, and that if our 24-inch pipeline ruptures, we got 1,059 feet, and after that, you know, that's as far as 8% concentration goes.
Can I interrupt you a second?
Sure.
Thanks for bringing up that 1,059 feet, because I actually sat through a meeting where Summit showed us some of that plume model information, and I am certain that the distance from the pipeline was higher in that model than what they're saying in that model. So my question would be, how can you have a difference of plume model spread between one state and another, assuming you had the same temperature and the same wind speed or something like that? Sorry, I didn't mean to get you off track, but that,
No.
I'm sure, and I think the emergency manager, maybe even the sheriff, could kind of weigh in on that, but
Topography as well.
it was substantially different numbers.
Well, I can tell you that and we don't know what these are, case numbers. We don't know how they varied, but they did a couple different case numbers for a 24-inch full bore rupture, and that one at 80,000 parts per million, 8% is 1,059. Then they ran another one, SDM whatever, and they did actually about 4 or 5 on a 24-inch pipeline, and this one is 1,123 feet. So looks like anywhere from a full bore rupture in their scenarios is 916 feet to 1,123 feet.
It was still higher than that.
Okay.
But I thought it was insufficient based on what I know about hazardous liquid gas.
Well,
but go ahead.
I'm extremely troubled by the fact that we're not able to take into how this thing's going to move if it's southeast of Bismarck, any point east, north, with our terrain. I mean, one size will not fit all, and PHMSA is saying that they're putting money into computational fluid dynamic model. So in defense of our ordinance, where we talked about setbacks and we talked about, for our development, being out X number, 10 miles or whatever we put in there, but being 2 miles out, I mean, 2 miles, and they're going to come up to the court, I'm sure, with 1,100 feet.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what the county is. Are we somehow able to get somebody like the expert in South Dakota that's been presented, Dr. John Abraham. I have an extensive paper that he published with a couple physicists from UK that was published on February 23rd of 2024. And they're talking about this modeling and computational fluid dynamics. So,
Okay. Well,
I mean, I'm just thinking that's going to be extremely important.
we'll discuss that with the attorneys,
So,
because I do know that a part of the appeal, I think, includes the plume model question. I'm pretty sure of that.
right.
And so we'll discuss that with the attorneys and
Yep.
see, because it's certainly a valid thing. There's no question it's valid.
Yeah, and so, and on this other topic of cease and desist, I've read some of the letters, extremely threatening. I mean, they're like, we'd spend $1 billion and you are going to be liable. I mean, they're extremely threatening. And they've gone out to former Congressman Steve King, several people in South Dakota, all over. And, you know, as if we weren't experiencing enough discomfort in who is the project developer of this pipeline, because that will be the project constructor overseeing construction and the project operator. And I'm starting to get the feeling that, you know, the care for the people and the citizens is, I mean, I already was concerned, but this is not setting well, you know, and I'm actually a witness as of 2023 in South Dakota on some matters, but I've been exercising my First Amendment rights every time I stand up here and before the PSC. And if Summit wants to take me on in all of this, bring it on, because I'm ready for them. And I mean, they're not the only ones that can sue for the crap that they've been doing. So I'm not going to stand for being threatened with some cease and desist garbage when I'm trying to just say what I know to be true, what I believe, and exercising my First Amendment rights. This is not China, this is not Russia, this is not North Korea, but I'm starting to feel like this is kind of the world we're living in. And I don't think we should be allowing, or any attorney representing the people should be allowing this kind of threatening behavior to be thrown at the people that are standing up to protect ourselves. And what we believe we're doing is right in protecting ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Commissioner Schwab.
Kurt, come back. Come back here. I read, but I didn't have time to research it, and I was wondering if maybe you read it, that Summit made a statement that they really don't know exactly how things are going to work up where they sequester. It's kind of like you got to pass a bill to see what's in it.
Yeah, that's what Nancy Pelosi said.
Yeah. So,
But they did say that. They won't really know the full expanse or migration of the CO2 in the pore space until they actually start injecting and time goes on. I mean, it's
incredible.
Not the EERC, not the DMR, not the Geological Survey, not anybody can, with a straight face, say that this isn't an R&D project. It's never before been done in North Dakota. There is an element of research and development to prove up all the model, variables that went into this. And I'm not saying there aren't some really good, capable, smart people that develop the models, but we're not talking about, you know, injecting air or water vapor into the ground. We're talking about something that is, if it gets out of hand, can cause some real problems in unintended zones. ADM in Decatur, Illinois, they're dealing with it now. They shut that down. I think about 7 years they were injecting 1 million tons a year in Decatur, Illinois. And 13 chrome stainless steel wellbore, they have CO2 in unintended formations, and the EPA is now involved. 7 years, 1 million ton a year. Summit's going to inject 19 million ton a year. So, I mean, I'm not prognosticating that it's going to go bad, but I mean, you know, you got to be. I mean, it's a huge concern. We've never done this. We've never stored a gaseous compound. Other than water, produced water. We've never injected and stored anything like this in a formation that's already full of
So, Kurt,
brine water.
you mentioned the 13 chrome steel, which came out in the Industrial Commission report. That's what they're going to be using, which is steel known to be flawed, that will fail. I forget, there was a university that did a report on 13 chrome and how it reacted with CO2. And if I remember correctly, they had a 100% fail rate.
It apparently doesn't like carbonic acid too
No.
much.
But that, in the Industrial Commission report that, from last week, that's what they're going to be using.
Well, boy, that just added to my warm and fuzzy, I guess. But
Didn't have enough to worry about. did we?
thanks for that cheery note.
Yeah.
I haven't dug deep enough in to really know that, and I wasn't able to watch their 3-hour delay, which I think was because our governor was flying in from New York because was there for the Time magazine thing. Two people to the right of Trump,
Well, it'll be nice to have a governor that
and he
actually lives
flew in.
North
That's why
Dakota
they delayed the
soon,
meeting.
so-
I believe is for him to get there. So, but I couldn't watch it. I had other things going on, so I'll have to watch a replay. But thank you for that, Commissioner Bakken.
Hey, thank you, Kurt. Does anybody else wish to speak on this item? If not, we're going to move on. The next item would be John Frazee.
Did we do 5?
Yeah, that was consent agenda. We
Okay.
did. John Frazee regarding a courtroom name discussion.
Thank you, Chair Bittner.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Frazee.
Okay, sorry about that.
Roughly a month ago, I sent you that email
Mm-hmm.
asking to consider renaming the municipal courtroom after Judge Bill Severin. I made a short presentation of a couple slides on his career. Auditor Blonskowski, can you help me? Pull it up here. Nope. That was the one that was here. Oh, that's what I emailed it to you. And to address one of the questions from your discussion on it at the last meeting, I think the most appropriate location that I would request this to be considered for would actually be in the Burleigh County Courthouse. In this situation, I think the location would matter because that's where, well, it looks like some of you have this printed out. But yeah, all 42 years, I believe, were over in the Burleigh County Courthouse. I know they might move municipal court over here someday, but in this situation, I do think the location matters, and I will walk through a little bit about his career on the slides. Yep. Is it just one of those?
What is that?
There you go. All right, so again, what I'm asking you to consider is renaming the courtroom at the courthouse for Judge Severin. This is, most of this information in the presentation came from the City of Bismarck's communications strategist, Kaylin Ost. I didn't have a lot of this information. They have a great media kit. This is Judge Severin's background. He was the municipal judge from 1982 to 2024. He's a BHS graduate, University of Oregon, UND Law School. This is only a 15 to 20 hour a week job. So on the side, he also was in private practice from 1977 to 2020. All the items on the slide here are the things that municipal court listens to and does trials on. This article, again, was provided by the city, and that was back from 1982 when he was, or 1984, I think was when he had to run for the first time. But again, it's going way back. They were looking at Class B misdemeanors, maximum $1,500 fine, 30 days in jail, combination of both. As you can see, over the last 40 years, the caseload has increased significantly, almost 20,000 a year in 2024. There's also a link there that the city wrote a appreciation post on his 40 years back in 2022. Again, a Bismarck Tribune article, unknown date, 15 to 20 hour a week job, and he also has sworn in every new police officer with a BPD. Again, another Tribune article. Some stats there from 83 to 2021 on citations and parking tickets. And another thing I learned is their chief clerk of municipal court, Kathy Wangler, was actually there even longer than Judge Severin. She was there from 1980 to 2024, which formed a team of 2 leaders there with great public service for the community. Another article from 2022. This was a post that helped get me onto this idea. This was a Facebook post from June 19th from the Bismarck Police Department. They had a private ceremony before Kathy's retirement and the end of Judge Severin's term, where the police department presented them with these plaques for their service and also wrote up this Facebook post. And the last thing I have to share is I realize I'm a random person coming up here, and so I contacted the Bismarck Police Department, Chief Dreyevich, and Deputy Chiefs Stugelmeyer and Ziegler. And Deputy Chief Randy Ziegler was kind enough to write this letter in support of Judge Severin. He signed it. I mean, they all were part of it, and their names are all on it, but Deputy Chief Ziegler signed it just based on his experience working with Judge Severin over the past few decades. And obviously, he worked a long time with them, and I hope that is something you guys consider in support of this proposal. That's all I have. Do you guys have any questions or comments for me?
No, I don't. Any commissioners? The only thing I had that I had forwarded to the auditor to be included in the agenda packet was an email from the city administrator. And it's not in the packet, at least I don't see it. It had to do with, it was just clarifying that the request is essentially just that it's a private individual's making a request, and that is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just go ahead and read it for you.
Sure.
Please accept this email as clarification of an item the Burleigh County Commission discussed under other business at the County Commission meeting on November 18th, 2024. I stated at the meeting, he says you, but it's me, stated at the meeting, there is a rumor floating around that once we leave this building, the city county office building, municipal court may be moving into this building. You referred to that. He said, please understand the Board of City Commissioners has not discussed moving the location of the municipal court, and to my awareness, there are no plans to initiate that discussion. As for the request from Mr. John Frazee, your remark is accurate. I did refer Mr. Frazee to you as the portfolio holder of the Burleigh County Buildings and Grounds. Mr. Frazee contacted me after initially contacting Auditor Splonskowski, who referred him to me. Please understand, Mr. Frazee initiated this topic and is acting on his own behalf without the consent of the city of Bismarck.
Agree with that 100%.
Yeah, okay. That was just a clarification from the city administrator on that. Commissioners, while any conversation?
My question is there a precedent already set for, because I couldn't agree more, the years of Judge Severin's service should be acknowledged. Is there a precedent for naming a courtroom in this fashion?
That would be a question. I believe we asked that of State's Attorney before regarding courtrooms.
So, yes, that's been done before. In fact, I think it's courtroom 305 over at the Morton County Courthouse is named the Thomas J. Schneider Memorial Courtroom. He practiced as a judge in primarily in Morton County. That was his base of operation. And so that was from the 80s through, I think he retired in 2020. Don't quote me on the year, but he did serve, I believe it was over 30 years as a judge, and they did name a courtroom after him over there and dedicated it to him. And again, that was the one right off of his chambers where he primarily practiced, much like is being requested here.
And that was a Morton County judge in the Morton County Courthouse?
Well, it's a South Central Judicial District judge who was chambered in Morton County.
Okay. I see.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Woodcock.
We do have, on the outside of the building, we have several memorials to officers that went down under duty. We've got the Veterans Memorial there. I think we got one other one. I'm not sure exactly what it is. But we do outside the building. We don't have anything inside the building. But there are, I know the Capitol grounds, if you go in there, the Capitol's got every courtroom, and I think every meeting room has a name on it, like Joe Blow's Diner, whatever it might be. But anyway, they do have a lot of them, so it's not unusual. So, and in promotion of Judge Severin, he's been there for a long time. I worked with him closely when we remodeled the courthouse about maybe 10, 15 years. Very dedicated to that courtroom. It was like it was his own building, and he wanted to really take care of it. So he helped us out a lot in restoring that room. So I would certainly be in favor of designating this as the go ahead.
Yes, Commissioner Bach.
I would definitely be in favor of it as well. Have you pursued what a plaque or just a name badge on the courtroom would look like, or?
I have not, but I certainly could.
Okay.
I didn't know what role I should do, or if that's a county thing, or
I guess
didn't want to get ahead of myself either.
So. Would that lie on facilities or is it kind of carte blanche on what that would look like?
I don't know. I've gotten a couple of emails over the last year or two concerning brass plaques and things, and I just delete them because we haven't had a need for something like that. So,
But I definitely, as long as it fits into the fabric of what the rest of the building looks like and the other nameplates on there, I would be in favor of pursuing something like that.
Mr. Chair, I would volunteer to coordinate that because I know the judge and I know the building. So if you want one of us to ramrod it, I'd be glad to do it. But we have to prove it. We have to prove it first. So
fundraising and such.
Yep.
This is uncharted waters for me. I don't go around begging people to name courtrooms.
Well, now's the
First
time.
Yeah.
You've got a good start. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
I don't think the monetary value will be a great problem to overcome at all.
I would move to approve.
Second.
The motion and second to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Schwab.
No.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Munson.
Yes.
Bakken.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
No. Motion carries. Thank you.
John, I would like you to work with
Okay.
Commissioner Woodcox on this. You've done a good job starting it,
Fine.
so carry it through.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think I had this conversation before, and I'll tell you why I voted no. I was attending a meeting at the county courthouse with the county judges and the court administrator, and I got a ticket for parking a few minutes too long out here. So I sent a note to the judge, and I said, "Hey, I'm in here for a meeting on remodeling the courtroom. Can you give me some slack?" You know, it was only like $10 or $15, and the response back was no. So No.
Mr.
I can
Chairman,
tell you.
I did almost the same thing. I parked down here in a questionable handicap parking spot, and I protested. I went up because of a $50 fine, or maybe it was $100. He didn't let me off, so
I've
I
got
paid
more-
my fine.
I've gotten more tickets after being elected to the Burleigh County Commission than I've had my whole life. And yes, no slack.
That's his
I had a
fault.
few when I was mayor, and I paid them all.
yeah, well, so there you have the reasoning. Okay, we're good. Next item on the agenda.
I would, just one addendum to that is, I think we should probably have a discussion, or Jerry, that might be conversation you could have if the city does at some point look at moving the courtroom over here. I think we should probably have a discussion on whether or not that courtroom naming stays there or if it comes over here. I mean, I would
Oh, I'm
think-
sure.
I would think it would stay there,
Yes,
but I think it's
absolutely.
probably.
It would be worthless over here.
Yeah,
There'd be
I
no
think that's
meaning
a
at all.
discussion we should have at the next time we address this, though.
Okay, so we're going to move on. The next thing we're going to do is move to item 7, which was originally item 9. And even though there's no information in the packet, I'm going to go ahead and allow Auditor Splonskowski to discuss investment clarification at this point. Auditor Splonskowski.
All right, if I could get the screen up. Okay, Chairman and Commissioners. Mr. Jacobs' assessment regarding the investments has several issues. Mainly, the benchmark he has chosen to use does not follow the investment policy found in the Burleigh County Finance Manual. It is necessary to have perspective on the situation before passing judgments solely on an unreasonable benchmark and prospective yields on the occasions that Burleigh County was operating without policies and standards. First, benchmarks should be reflective of the actual investments being purchased. According to our investment policy found in the Burleigh County Finance Manual, the primary objectives of investment activities in the order of priority shall be number 1, safety, number 2, liquidity, and number 3, yield. Quote, return on investment is of secondary importance to the safety and liquidity objectives described above, unquote. The Burleigh County Finance Manual has also states, quote, a series of appropriate benchmarks should be established against which portfolio performance shall be compared on a regular basis. The benchmark should be reflective of the actual investments being purchased, unquote. With this information, I'm happy to say that we have successfully fulfilled the first 2 objectives of safety and liquidity while still yielding at or above budgeted projections. But here we run into a problem with Mr. Jacobs' presentation, as the benchmark that he uses is based solely on treasuries. We do have treasuries in the Bank of North Dakota. However, this is not a type of investment we have typically made in the past with other financial institutions. We have typically focused investments on CDs and money markets. In August, Mr. Schmidt with the Burleigh County Finance Department asked for and received feedback from several different counties. Many counties exclusively have their investments in low-risk accounts such as cash, checking accounts, savings accounts, money markets, and CDs. I have here, for instance, if you'd like to review, the Renview County Auditor. What is your current investment mix in the following investment types? They have their funding in cash, checking, savings, money markets, about half of their assets, and the other half of the assets is in CDs. Nelson County. We have CDs in the past. We have had CDs in the past, but currently all of our investments are in the local bank money markets, with a majority invested in Bell Bank ICS savings account. Morton County. They have their cash, their investments in cash, checking, savings, money markets, and in CDs. Lemoore County. Their funding is in cash, checking, savings, money markets, and in CDs. Burleigh County has primarily invested funds in similar low-risk accounts for some time with success. Burleigh County is not an outlier in how we invest county funds. Why the finance team chose not to include this feedback as well as accurate benchmarks in the report is concerning to me, as it would give the Commission a better perspective on Burleigh County financial wellness. Additionally, the Finance Department's benchmark seems to indicate that we would need to invest all of our funds into treasuries. Exclusive investment in treasuries would violate the diversification of investments portion of policy, thereby exposing our investments to excessive risk and violating policy. I would also like to point out that the returns on a quarterly basis can be misleading due to the fact that by design, due to staggering, some investments mature later than others. A better perspective is the budgeted projection of investment yields. The 2023 yield exceeded the budget projections by over $100,000, and as of the end of August 2024, Burleigh County's investments have yielded more than $1.1 million beyond what was budgeted. Considering all the information, even if we were to use the finance department's faulty benchmark, Mr. Jacobs' calculated loss of funds comes out to 0.0088%, which is less than 1% for the entire year of 2023, and 0.0018% for 2024's first quarter, which is 1/5 of 1% and could be arguably statistically irrelevant. There are legal limitations in North Dakota Century Code as to what investments counties can place money in. However, there is not a minimum amount of different investment types within those guidelines. While remaining within legal constraints of North Dakota Century Code and Burleigh County policy, my office has been able to exceed the 2024 budgeted investments amount by far.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Munson?
Sorry, Auditor Sponskowski, can you go back a couple slides for me?
Yep.
Just want to so as of August, you're stating 1.1 million beyond budget.
Mm-hmm.
What was our budget for 24 of interest income?
I'd have to find the exact number for you. I could find that here in a moment.
Okay, but you are 1.1 million above that budget.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure. That's not what I heard. But.
Also have verification that on more than one of the investments made in 2024, Mr. Jacobs and Mr. Smith concurred with the way in which my office was investing funds. Yet they later presented their report recommending the contrary. It seems that they are contradicting their previous statements in their presentation. In an effort to find any potential issues or large mistakes, I reached out to the state's auditor's office to ensure that there was no misappropriation of funds or funds not accounted for. This is part of the response I received. Good afternoon, Mark. I wanted to give a summary for the fiscal year 2023 audit per our phone call. I believe overall the audit went well. The staff at Burleigh County are always great to work with. We issued an unmodified opinion over the financial statements and the federal single audit. An unmodified opinion is a clean opinion and is the highest level of assurance we can give. There were 3 formal recommendations in the audit, 2 of them being applicable to Burleigh County, and the first recommendation was regarding audit adjustments that were needed to be made to the financial statements in the audit. This is a very common audit finding that we see across the state. The second recommendation is regarding under pledged securities. North Dakota Century Code requires pledging of 110% of the deposits being held at banks other than BND. The Wells Fargo account did not have the adequate pledging coverage at 12/31/2023. We found out that this was an issue that was due to a timing issue with where the year end fell on this calendar. In summary, the audit illustrated that our office is effective and does not match the grim picture presented by Mr. Jacobs at the August 5th, 2024 County Commission meeting. It is also quite obvious that the current form of communication between our offices is not effective. Mr. Jacobs has communicated primarily through emails. Due to the large amount of emails myself and my staff receive daily, these are highly subject to being lost in the inbox or set aside for other immediate issues. I would recommend a more effective form of communications to help mediate this issue in the future. Additionally, Mr. Jacobs' presentation did not account for workforce issues and other difficulties that the auditor's office experienced prior to my time and within my first year leading the office. A new finance director was hired at the end of 2022. Upon assuming the role of Burleigh County Auditor on April 1st, 2023, a new investment policy was approved in April 17th of 2023. Moreover, Mr. Jacobs also states in his presentation that there was no turnover in the auditor-treasurer positions in 2023. Besides me taking the position in April, we also had to hire replacements for the Accountant 1 executive assistants and elections coordinator, administrative assistant 2, and accounting technician accounts payable. The training period for a new employee is very extensive, so to say that we are fully staffed and trained for all of 2023 is not true. The Commission and citizens of Burleigh County also deserve to know the truth of the working situation in the Burleigh County Auditor's Office. At the beginning of 2024, the decision was made by the County Commissioners to remove several duties historically taken on by the Finance Director and place them upon the Auditor's Office. Despite the transfer of duties, the Auditor's Office was not granted an additional accounting position. This has resulted in a dramatic increase in workload in the office. Despite my warnings of the ramifications of shifting duties without resource reallocation, the Commission chose to proceed with the decision and, in fact, removed an accountant from my 2025 preliminary budget. Because of these decisions made by the Commission, as well as the dramatic increase in election-related work, my staff and I have been greatly overloaded. This workload is something that continues to be an issue in our office. Despite these added responsibilities, we were still able to exceed our budgeted yield. If we would have had sufficient staff, we could have spent more time researching the best available rates and decreasing taxpayer burden. Although the Commission did allocate up to 20 hours a week from the Finance Office to assist my office, this has not been nearly enough to adequately offset the added duties. As I informed the Commission at the July 15, 2024 meeting, the decision changing the Finance Department's role would result in the need for additional staff in my office. There's also been alleged issues with the Deputy Auditor Treasurer that need to be addressed. First, I want to say that she is a great asset to my department and to Burleigh County. She is one of the most dedicated and loyal employees in my office. However, due to the substantial changes made to the 30-year standard of practice, adding many new duties, we have needed to reallocate time and responsibilities to continue doing our original job descriptions. My Deputy Auditor Treasurer's job descriptions, as cited by Mr. Jacobs, says to manage and perform fund investments activities with 25% of her time. The understaffing in my office has made it utterly impossible for her to contribute even a fraction of her time to this portion of her job description. Even under these unprecedented working conditions, she has still been able to yield investments far beyond the budgeted amount. If the Commission wants to honor their job descriptions, I request that they give my office the resources necessary to do so. How to move forward? After less than 2 years as County Auditor, I wish to express that this is a huge job with many complexities and a lot to learn. The voters placed me in this position to serve them, and I continue to grow in my knowledge of the job every day. That being said, it takes time to master these skills, and as you can see in the investment performance, these improvements are definitely being made. In my office, the primary focus is to adhere to North Dakota's Century Code and will continue to be so. With the added duties in the office and the election process this year, I can say that my entire office has worked hard to serve the county taxpayers to the best of our ability. Based on these facts, I question whether the report presented by the Finance Director was truly an effort to improve Burleigh County's investment yields, since based on their own unreasonable benchmark, we were less than 1% below maximized yields for 2023 and 1/5% below maximized returns for the first quarter of 2024. I agree with Mr. Jacobs when he says that we can improve our strategy to better reflect our policy. My office is engaged in a robust effort to improve our processes in order to multiply investment yields in the future. However, the county's policy manual is very complex, and in an effort to best follow it, I again urge the Commission to approve the hiring of an individual specifically for these and other needs in my office. With this change, I believe we can continue to improve our processes and move Burleigh County to the next level. As a Chief Financial Officer of Burleigh County, I would conclude that although there was potential to make more money than we did in the first quarter, if we would have had the staff and the expertise to do so, we still successfully made wise investments and invested taxpayer funds effectively and safely while exceeding this year's projection by far and saving the taxpayers money. Just another point is kind of interesting. It was in the news that the state treasurer's office is just in hired an investment board, has hired a consultant to oversee their investments. And if, I see that the state treasurer's office is bigger than the Burleigh County's office. However, this is something that other offices are seeing the benefits in as well, to try to maximize investment yield, as well as I reviewed what we do with the Cass County auditor. And for perspective, the Cass County investment policy is approximately 3.5 pages long. Ours is approximately 12 pages long. They contract with an individual bank to do their investments. And any of the individual budgets that are not being used, any of the funds in those individual budgets that are not being used at the time but are allocated for that year, remain in a sweep account. So I would suggest or recommend additional staff and or relooking at our policy to make it more, or I should say less unwieldy, so that we can be as successful as we can. Any questions?
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Schwab?
Didn't you have money in your budget for additional staff if you needed it?
I was not, I do not. I was not allowed any additional staff. There was one that was added to the preliminary budget, an accountant 2 position. However, that was taken out of the preliminary budget.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Wood?
The state comes in and audits us every year. They don't audit the type of investments we have or the amount of investments or the yield at all. Because I've read their report and it never comes up as to suggestions as to what we could do differently to enhance our interest income. They don't even look at that. So you can't look at that audit and say we're doing a really good job, because that had nothing to do with investments, and that's what we're concerned about is our investments.
That is correct, and the reason
Thank
I
you.
reached out to the state auditor's office was to just get their perspective to make sure that there was no gross misallocation of funds. They do not review our investment yields or
Right.
any of that. It was more so just to get reassurance, okay, how are we handling our money in general? And that's the feedback that I was seeking to.
Well, they get
verify.
very specific, whatever, very accurate. They're very accurate, and they don't even touch investments as far as what type should we be doing, a CD or should we be doing a money market or a treasury. They don't even touch that. So the state has nothing to do with it, other than we might have a different type of audit that might tell us that. The state will not do that.
Okay. Do you have something? No. Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you. The next thing we'll do is 2024 general election recap.
I'd like to comment on a citizen and ask a question if I could.
Sure.
Thank you. Who's responsible for hiring this Mr. Jacobs who gave a false report? Who does Mr. Jacobs work for? Who hires him?
He works for the Burleigh County Commission.
Okay, so who hired him specifically?
We did.
We did.
To get the board?
Right.
Okay, so as a citizen, what I'm hearing is there's some gross misrepresentations in the information that he provided to you guys and that he provided to the citizens of Burleigh County. Because.
That's your opinion.
Okay, that's not my opinion. This is, okay.
Yes, it is.
It's actually not, actually no, because we just heard Auditor Splenskowski, which I wish I would have had an opportunity. I sent out an open records request late on Friday to get the information. After seeing, as a citizen, I had to come out to come here directly because he was removed from the agenda last meeting and
Correct.
was not allowed to rebuttal the inaccurate report that was given.
Right,
Now,
now
I got one more
let me
question.
tell you-
Who?
hang on.
Okay.
The reason that he wasn't speaking at the last one is because we were waiting on additional information. And as part of this agenda packet, there's, I don't know, anywhere from 60 to however many pages of additional information. So I think to say that, that his comments would have been based on Q1 information, not on the entire 2023 plus the first 3 quarters of 24.
Okay, we just seen that the policy is to diversify. And this Mr. Jacobs, who you guys hired and who we're paying for, Mr. Jacobs presented something that would cause someone to have to be a prophet to know in advance that if you invested everything that you have in treasuries going against the policy, that we would have done better. But the budget.
Hang on. I don't know that the finance director's advice would have violated any policy.
Is the policy to diversify, or are we allowed to take all, would Auditor Splunskowski be able to take the whole lot of the money and put it in treasuries? According to the policy.
Yes.
I think that's likely. There's a lot to
Copy
it.
of the policy for me, please.
There's a lot to it.
The policy is pretty clear. It's diversified. It's a written policy. It's a county policy. What Mr. Jacobs was asking and he was presenting goes against policy.
Well, I tell you what.
Who voted for the budget? You guys all approved what the projections were. From what I understand, everybody agreed that this should be this is what
Okay,
it would look good.
hang on a second. I'm going to address each one of these things as it comes up. There's information contained in the agenda packet specifically regarding that, and I think that the finance director will clarify that for you because he's going to get a chance to get up too. So
And
that
this is Mr.
information.
Jacobs. This is Mr. Jacobs, the finance director?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Jacobs, the finance director. Okay, so I just want to see the policy. Can we put the policy on the screen? Don't you have it in your slides, Auditor Splunskowski? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask,
Commissioner Woodcock.
who's the chief investment officer for Burleigh County? Who is the chief investment officer?
I am.
Thank you.
And he did real good because he exceeded by over, how many million was it that you exceeded the projections that this commission voted on? 1.1 million was exceeded as of August. This is a railroad. And as a citizen, I don't appreciate it. And I would like to know, this is what I believe is going on. He is the guy preventing the foxes that are guarding the hen house. Do you or do you not, Commissioner Bittner, often bid on county projects?
No, I think I've bid on one county project.
Okay, well, you're bidding on county projects. You guys are having secret meetings. Is that or is not true?
No, that's an
Absolutely.
insult.
I'm sorry.
That is,
We can't
you
do
are,
that.
you are an
I have a
insulting
question.
person. Listen,
I'm not insulting
Listen.
you. I want a question.
Yes,
I
you
have
are.
a
Yes,
question
wait a minute.
Specifically with regards to.
you stop. You're out of line.
Okay.
You're totally out of line.
Was there or was there not a meeting
everything.
that was held on the Providence building that all of the resources on that were voted, that the people could not see what was going to be spent or what the projections were on that? You guys had a secret meeting, so why is that
No,
out of
there
order?
there has
Why
never.
do we allow these lies to
secret.
come out?
Well, it's not
Well,
lies.
I'm not-
asking
you know,
a
I'm
question.
just
Did
not
that
gonna
happen or
tolerate
not?
this.
Did
Listen
you
to
guys
me.
have a meeting that
Listen to
was
me.
not? And I
No.
have a question.
Kelly,
No.
I have to be removed
You-
because I'm
yes.
calling you out.
no, because you're not being truthful.
Why?
Commissioner Schwab,
Okay. Did you guys have?
stop. Just
No.
stop.
I'm asking a question. Was there a meeting that was withheld
I'm
from
telling
the
you to
public
stop.
on money?
I'm telling you to stop.
No.
No, there was not.
No.
You guys,
What meeting,
Look.
what meeting do you think this was? You should be able to prove what you're saying.
okay,
What
there was a
meeting?
meeting, there was a meeting that was had earlier this year
When?
with regards to
When?
in November, where you guys,
Last
did you guys do a closed meeting for any reason with regards to finances and stating that
No.
it was because
No.
of the IT?
Commissioner Munson,
No.
you stop.
So there was an executive session
Okay,
where we reviewed bids. We closed that executive session. We opened back up into a regular session where we approved the contract to bring in water for fire suppression to the Providence building. That meeting happened, as I just stated.
can I ask why it was called as an executive meeting?
Anytime the commissioners are, what's the right word I'm looking for, Julie?
Contract negotiations.
Negotiating. We always are in executive session during negotiations. We open the meeting back up to the public. so that we can vote on the process.
What was the reason given why that meeting was in executive session?
Just told you.
We
What was the formal reason given why that meeting went into executive session? I'm just asking a
I
question, the
would have to-
formal reason.
We'd have to review the
read the
meeting minutes on that,
Yep.
okay? And we can get back to you on that.
Okay,
However,
was it
you know,
given- I just
we've-
got a question.
You've had
Would-
enough. You've had enough time.
I've had an.
You've had enough.
I've had enough
You're
time
done.
to ask questions. I'm
Yes.
done asking, I'm not
Yes,
done.
you're done. You're wasting
bad.
our time.
I'm
You're
wasting your-
making baseless accusations,
Okay.
and you're done.
I'm not making baseless accusations.
That's the way I see
think you
it,
guys are
Kelly.
making baseless accusations against
I'm
the
gonna ask you to-
auditor's
I'm gonna ask
office
you to leave.
because he's calling you guys out.
He's not,
He is an elected official, and you're. You
Ma'am?
know what? This is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah,
shut you down.
you are
if
being-
try
yeah.
to call out Commissioner
That's
Bittner,
right.
guys. That's who you elected.
yeah. Okay. Auditor Sponskowski, general election recap.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Munson.
If I can, Auditor Sponskowski, would you do me a favor and get me that number that was in our budget, just as a refresher of how much interest we had in the, allocated in the budget for interest income?
You want to do that now?
No, he can do that later.
And
That's fine.
did you want to hear about the diversification in the policy?
I was reading it as she was talking,
We've
but
got
it would be good.
Okay.
We've got that.
So here, let me see here, is there be subsection 8. Subsection 8, diversification, is the policy of the Burleigh County, it is the policy of the Burleigh County, I'm reading it how it's written, I didn't write this. It is the policy of the Burleigh County to diversify its investment portfolios, to eliminate risk of loss resulting from the overconcentration of assets in a specific maturity, issuer, or class of securities. All cash and cash equivalent assets in all Burleigh County funds shall be diversified by maturity, user, and class of security. Diversification strategies shall be determined and revised periodically by the investment committee/investment officer for all funds except for the employee retirement fund. In establishing specific diversification strategies, the following general policies and constraints shall apply. Portfolio maturities shall be staggered to avoid undue concentration of assets in a specific maturity sector. Maturities selected shall provide for stability of income and reasonable liquidity. For cash management funds, liquidity shall be assured through practices ensuring that the next disbursement date and payroll date are covered through the maturity investments of marketable U.S. Treasury bills. Risks of market price volatility shall be controlled through maturity diversification, such as aggregate price losses on instruments with maturities exceeding 1 year shall not be greater than coupon interest and investment income received from the balance of the portfolio. The investment committee/investment officer shall establish strategies and guidelines for the percentage of the total portfolio that may be invested in securities other than repurchase agreements, treasury bills, or collateralized certificates of deposit. The committee shall conduct a quarterly review of these guidelines and evaluate the probability of market and default risk in various investment sectors as part of its considerations.
Mr. Chairman, are we diversified?
Wilcox.
Don't we diversify all the time? We have for 30 years, as far as I know. We
So-
don't put it all in one investment or all in one bank or one facility.
So I'm
or-
very glad that you asked that. And so currently we are pretty heavy in money markets. We're quite heavy in money markets. The goal is to start transferring that over probably into CDs or treasuries. Like I said, historically speaking, we've never done treasuries before in anything other than BND, mainly because it's something that we weren't super familiar with. Now we were becoming familiar with treasuries and seeing the benefits of investing into those. In fact, the most recent investment that I made was going out of a CD and into a treasury. So it is definitely my goal to diversify as much as we reasonably can, as far as the type of investment that we go into, the maturity, and then also when it comes to the timelines of those maturities. For instance, with the Bank of North Dakota, what's been our typical practice as of late is the treasuries that mature in the Bank of North Dakota in the bond account. We've been pretty much going 1 month at a time, mainly due to the fact that we weren't sure when the escrow agreement was going to be agreed upon, when any of those adjustments were going to be made. So, in the first part of my term, there was a lot to learn, a lot going on, and there was a lot of things in Bacon, North Dakota that were going on that I was not yet aware of. Like I said, I'm learning my job. I haven't been here yet for 2 years, but the form of communication between myself and the banks is increasingly becoming better. And basically, again, I'm learning my job. Last year, we exceeded our budgeted yields by $100,000. This year, as of the end of August, we've exceeded them by $1.1 million. I think that you can see a change there. So yes, the long story short-ish is
I just asked whether we're diversified.
It is
and
our
we are.
desire to be
Yeah,
more
I
diversified
think we want you
than
to
we
move
already
on
are.
to general election recap.
Let me pull it up. Let's see here. Chairman and Commissioners, again, I would like to give you a recap of the 2024 general election, an overview of the challenges faced, and the turnout we experienced. The 2024 general election was historic in many ways, not only because of the presidential race, but also due to the several contentious measures on the ballot, but more specifically for Burleigh County with the resignation of the elections coordinator. The general election preparation began almost as soon as the primary election canvass board was complete. From doing inventory on supplies to preparing the notices from the newspapers. There are many steps in putting on an election before ballots even arrive in the office for absentee voting. Absentee voting became available on 9/26/2024, and in total, 9,637 absentee votes were received and processed by my office and prepared for the absentee precinct. With the resignation of the elections coordinator, we had to reallocate duties within the office, as well as take on more duties for each person in order to make up for this loss. The Secretary of State's office was extremely helpful through this process and helped us overcome this challenge. Through this process, mistakes were found, corrected, and noted to prevent them from happening again. One example is the standalone election computer issue, which was found and promptly corrected. We also went above and beyond the typically required testing and verifications in order to ensure ourselves and the Secretary of State's office that certain processes had been done correctly and completed. My staff worked very hard through the election process, as well as the Tax Equalization Office, who have been an integral part of our election process for years. On top of this, several other departments generously sent available staff to assist us in the preparation for the election. Poll workers are an integral part of our election, and this year was no exception. Burleigh County had 297 election workers trained and working on election day or on standby in case of a cancellation. These individuals did a great job working the elections and are greatly appreciated by me and my office for taking time out of their lives to do such a great civic duty. 19,065 votes were cast during early vote, and 24,164 were cast on election day. Between absentee, early vote, and election day, 52,866 total votes were cast, resulting in a 69.9% voter turnout in Burleigh County, beating the state turnout of 62.61. Although this election year was very challenging and difficult, my office and all those who helped us were able to complete the election process successfully and with minimal issues. I cannot adequately express the gratitude and pride I feel for my staff for all they did through this year's election, where we were able to adapt and overcome while providing a great election experience for the voters and also ensuring all security measures were followed correctly.
Okay, anybody have any questions on that? We'll talk a little bit more later about the standalone computer and CISA report. We're going to go ahead and move into item number 8. Thank you, Auditor Swanskowski. County Finance Director Jacobs, 2023 investment report, Q2 24 and Q3 2024 investment returns.
Chair and Commissioners, I've got to address a couple things. First of all, any implications of unethical behavior on my part, I take exception to that. I'm a licensed accountant, and we have ethical requirements, and we're one of the, believe it or not, most ethical professions out there. And so any sort of implication that this was anything but an objective report, I really resent that, because normally when you do a report, and this was no exception, you state your assumptions. We state our assumptions. We clearly stated our assumptions. We are assuming U.S. Treasuries as a benchmark. Why did we do that? The reason we did that is because the county, per investment policy, did not set an investment mix for benchmarking or anything for benchmarking. And in fact, when my office met face-to-face, not over email, but face-to-face with Auditor Splonskowski, he asked us to prepare an investment mix, which we did. And then we sent the email September 19th, and we got no response. Until I came up here on December 2nd and said I got no response, then I got a response. But by that point, we had to do something. And so we made the decision to use a Treasury benchmark. Certainly, we could have used other benchmarks. If we wanted to be 25% in CDs, we could have said, hey, what would the benchmark be if we were 25% in CDs? But we didn't. We had no benchmarking information established. And incidentally, when it comes to benchmarking, I think we were looking at Pennsylvania has a liquid investment pool, $25 billion. Their only benchmark is the 3-month Treasury. So it's not exactly a weird thing to do. And as far as being 100% in Treasuries, we don't agree that would be over invested in Treasuries. And we stated that in that September 19th email to the auditor. We said, and you can see it, it's in your packet. I think it's in Appendix E4. We clearly stated in there that we think 100% in Treasuries is okay. We didn't actually think we would ever get to 100%, but we said it's okay. And on December 4th, Auditor Treasurer Splonskowski said he mostly agrees. I asked him to state his disagreement. I got no response. So I'm a little surprised to hear all this discussion about being this diversification discussion that we've never defined. And that, again, my office doesn't agree with that. I was looking at the state of California has an investment pool. They've got 100% treasuries. That's what they allow, up to 100% treasuries. They're actually at, I think, 5%, but their policy allows for 100%. So in any case, moving on to the other comment I have to correct is in the report, I did not state there was no turnover in the Auditor Treasurer's office. I stated there was no turnover of the deputy auditor position. So I want to be really clear about that, because that was the investment piece. Now, we did hear some discussion of workload. I think that was a reference to moving some job duties around that were previously in the finance department. That began in 2024. So we're talking about 2023 tonight. So we are required under the investment policy to report annually and quarterly. That was not being done. So the policy was not being followed. That is why we're here today. So today we're going to discuss the 2023 annual report in its entirety, and I'll also touch on the benchmarked return on investment for Qs 2 and 3. When those reports are completed, we will email them to the commission, and early next year we will compile the 2024 annual report. So to reiterate, the goal under the investment policy is to achieve a market rate of return. We define that as investing in U.S. Treasuries. And one more comment is budgeting is not benchmarking. So these are two completely different things. A benchmark is an external goal. A budget is an internal goal. A benchmark is I want to run a 6-minute mile, not I want to run faster than I did last week. So just to be clear about that, the policy doesn't say beat your budget. It says to benchmark. So the result for 2023 is that the county underperformed the benchmark of a similar term investment in U.S. Treasuries by $751,055.
Pardon me, how much?
$751,055.
You call that underinvesting income, or what do we call that?
I'll get to that, but just to answer your question, about 59% of that was due to a failure to invest available funds.
Invest at all?
Yes.
Okay.
So in this case, the Burleigh County Auditor Treasurer is also responsible for investing the Morton County sales taxes. Now, I want to be clear. We did have we had two auditors in 2023. So Q1 was under Auditor Vetter, and then Qs 2, 3, and 4 were Auditor Splonskowski. So when I say the Auditor Treasurer, just in general, it's just the role. That's all it ever is, really. It's just that role. We will differentiate what happened under whom, but I just wanted to be clear about that. So the Burleigh County Auditor Treasurer is responsible for investing Morton County's sales taxes, which are held in trust at BND. And Morton County underperformed the benchmark by $77,800. So this sums to $828,855 for 2023. So to put it, to sort of reverse it, had we invested in treasuries as funds became available, we would have earned an additional $751,000, and Morton would have earned an additional $780,000. Just really quickly moving into, to recap Q1 and then moving into Qs 2 and 3 of 24.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Munson.
Sorry, Lee, you had said that Morton was 778. It's actually 77,800.
Correct.
Just want to make sure that was clarified. Thank you.
Yeah, 77,800. So for Q1 of 24, Burleigh underperformed by 136. When I brought the Q1 report, I had not compiled Morton. I did for this one, or in this case, and Morton for Q1 2024 was about 26,000 under the benchmark. Q2, Burleigh was 168,000 under. Morton was about 19,000 under. Q3, I'm going to say a big number, and then I'm going to clarify it, and then I'm going to comment on why we do this, why we're benchmarking. So for Q3, Burleigh was 226,900, and Morton was 38,000. Now, why was it a really big number? We were engaged in some bond defeasance activity, and part of that, at the advice of our bidding agent, was to liquidate our portfolio so that we could reinvest it on that timeline we've discussed so many times out to 2032. So that came at a cost because the money sat there. And I was involved in that, and it was probably 14 days or something like that. The flip side of that is that we went back and ran the numbers, and the county made $2 million on that deal. So, we made $2 million going out to 2032. It cost us, and Morton made some money too off of that, of course. But so it cost us, $88,000. So if you remove that, so the point is, you can fail to meet your benchmark, but there can be a good reason for it. So that's one reason to benchmark. It's okay to be below your benchmark. Maybe you have a good reason for that. So in this case, for Q3, if you remove the bond defeasance activity, we're at 150,000 for Burleigh and 25,000 for Morton.
Underinvested.
Correct. Yeah, under the benchmark. So the reason why the county underperformed in 2023 is approximately 59% I would classify as a failure to invest. 17% I would say was a failure to capitalize on rising rates, and 14% was poor investment choices, and then there was some miscellaneous. The biggest number, failure to invest, most of that came from BND and then from our Wells Fargo, basically checking account, where we had for the entire year $3 million uninvested. There was some issues with rising rates where the county didn't make some moves we should have made, and we'll get into that later. And then there was some poor investment choices. So the reason the county underperformed the benchmark in 2024, I would classify 77% as a failure to invest and about 18 to 19% poor investment choices. Same scenario, it was BND and the Wells Fargo checking account that led the failure to invest category. So just, I'd like to touch on two examples from 2023, and that's possibly all we'll have time for. Of course, I can stand for questions. Under the failure to invest category, Bank of North Dakota. So the reason for the underperformance is, as I said, the failure to invest available funds. So for instance, at the beginning of the 2023 years, this January, the county had over 18 million in uninvested cash at BND. In another example, the county went 4 months, April 4th through August 2nd, without making a single investment in BND, despite receiving sales taxes monthly. So the history of the BND account, the brief history is pertinent. With this account, the county was incorrectly accounting for it for several years. I didn't go way far back, but several years. Somehow we were double counting cash in our general ledger. The state auditor's office discovered this error and they corrected it in our financial statements for several years, but the county did not fix the issue internally. So in August of 2023, after our fiscal year 22 financial statement audit report again revealed we were incorrectly accounting for this cash, rather than fix the problem with the account, the auditor treasurer's office completely removed this BND sales tax from the books. So it's off books cash at this point. In February of 2024, I became aware of this issue by running a cash report and seeing this huge number. And I'm going, that doesn't make sense. And so I asked around and I learned, and then I was communicating with the state auditor's office at the time too. And so I learned about this. So what I did is I prepared a journal entry to add that account back to the books with the correct balance, but the auditor treasurer's office refused to make the entry. So that was in March, on March 6th when I had that meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Wood.
can you repeat the Bank of North Dakota? I didn't get those numbers written down. The Bank of North Dakota investments that we had that we didn't do anything with at all. You said it and I didn't write it down.
So for 2023, we underperformed in the Bank of North Dakota. Burleigh did by 236,000, and Morton underperformed by 77,800.
But you had a figure like 16 million or something that we had.
Oh, I'm sorry. In January of 2023, we had over 18 million uninvested. So it was in cash, in the money market earning whatever they offered, 0.5% or something like that.
Uninvested at all.
Correct. We did have.
City in the money market drawing.
That's correct, yes. We had 2 investments with BND at that time, so somehow we knew enough to make 2 investments. I'm just not understanding why we left it at 2, but we left it at 2. And so this issue with not accounting for this account correctly, double counting cash, this issue with removing it from the books, I mean, there's a direct connection between your accounting and your financial performance. And, you know, Auditor Treasurer mentioned the presentation I gave on August 5th. This is what I was referring to, is that we need to improve the accounting, because, you know, to go 4 months without investing shows me that there's just a complete lack of awareness of this account, most likely because it's not on the books and we're not reconciling it to the bank statement. And by the way, we didn't budget for this account either. And had we budgeted for it, we would not have met our budgeted revenues. So that's BND.
Excuse me. Say that again? What?
We did not budget for this BND sales tax account. It is completely off books.
Why would that be off books?
Because I think when, under our previous finance director, it was being accounted for correctly from 2015 through 2020. I think they ran into a problem when we refunded the bond in 2020. We had an old bond, we issued new bonds and repurchased the old bonds, which is literally a refunding under Auditor Vietmeyer. And so I think we somehow ran into a problem trying to account for that transaction. And it caused this issue of where we were doubling up on cash. Like, at the end of year 2022, we show 59 million in the ledger. We had like 23 million on the bank statement. So it just, I'm still not really clear on what happened. I don't think removing it from the books is not the solution that I would have proposed. And in fact, I proposed putting it back on the books. So that's an issue, and I'm trying to draw some parallels between, the accounting and the investments, because it's not just the investments. It's, we have these accounting issues that we need. We've outgrown our ledger, basically, is part of the issue. I mean, we've got one account for investments, literally investments, and it's got like tens of millions of dollars from like 6 different banks in there. And how can you can't run any reports on that from your ledger. All of the interest revenue goes into one account, interest revenue. You can't look at that and say, Wells Fargo interest revenue over Wells Fargo investments, giving me my percentage. I should be able to go to my ledger and see how each one of my investments is performing on an ongoing basis, because that would allow me to see, wait a minute, BND's underperforming, what's going on? It's not invested, let's invest it. See where I'm going with this? Yep. And so it's a whole thing. It's more than just investments, but I wanted to highlight that history of BND because I think that kind of brings it together. The other issue I would describe as failing to take advantage of rising rates, poor investment choices. You could possibly call this failure to invest, I guess if that was your preference. This deals with our First International bank accounts. And again, just to reiterate, no banks, this is not about banks doing it. This is about the county's investment choices. We're not pointing fingers at banks. I want to be clear about that. So I'll just offer a brief history of this First International account leading into 2023 because I think that's important. If you have the report in front of you and can refer to page 6, that may be helpful. There's a chart on page 6 of the 2023 investment report. The county has 2 main money market accounts, a Wells Fargo account, also known as the sweep, and the First International bank account, money market. Within First International, we've got like 3 accounts. We have, I think there's some kind of reserves. There's our ARPA funds, the COVID money, and there's some health insurance. It's kind of an operating account, I think. So in 2022, Wells Fargo rates began increasing around April or May. So we're way back in 2022 now. So Wells Fargo slowly starts increasing. If you remember back at that time, there was all the inflation and the rates started going up. So Wells Fargo's increasing. First International stayed flat throughout 2022 in our money market at 0.25%, which is 0.25%. So we have quite a bit of money in both accounts. So just to be clear, I mean, we use Wells Fargo often. It's our main operating account. So daily, the county auditor treasurer's office prints reports from our Wells Fargo account, the money market, the sweep, which shows the rate earned the previous day. So every day we print a report, shows us the rate we're getting, okay? So I've got some examples of those reports in Appendix A of the 2023 investment report. So as the Wells Fargo rate rose steadily throughout the year, the County Auditor Treasurer's Office printed daily reports that showed how the Wells Fargo money market was outperforming First International. I've got in my notes here, we were about 4 times First International in June. Then Wells Fargo was about 6 times First International in July. Remember, First International is constant, 0.25%. In August, Wells Fargo was 8 times First International, then 10 times in September. This is all happening in 2022. So by the end of December 2022, Wells Fargo was earning 16 times First International at 4% versus 0.25%. So that gets us to 2023. So now, beginning of the year, of the report year. So at no point in 2022 did we move money over from First International to Wells Fargo. We left it where we found it. And actually, to the contrary, we deposited $9.2 million in ARPA money. We got another ARPA payment into First International during 2022. So this is the history coming into January 2023, and it's reflected on the chart in the report. We now have about $30 million with this latest deposit from ARPA in First International, earning 0.25%. So now, in the new year, rates increased at First International in January, yielding 0.76% for the month. Meanwhile, the rates at Wells Fargo continued to rise. Well, on February 16th, the county purchased $22.5 million in CDs from First International at an average rate of 4.1%. So during this 46-day period between January 1st and February 16th, the county had $30 million in the First International money market. Had we invested in 1-month treasuries during that time period, we would have earned an additional $120,000 in the 46 days. Had we moved the money over to Wells Fargo, we would have earned an additional $100,000, or I think it might even be $110,000 during that 46-day period. Because remember, it's $30 million. So then, returning to the February 16th purchase of the $22.5 million CD ladder. Again, the average yield's 4.1. Maturities range from 1 to 12 months, and we signed the contract on February 9th of 2023. Well, on February 2nd, 1 week earlier, we purchased the following treasuries at B&D. Remember the $18 million. We came in, and I think we had hired a deputy finance director at the time, and I don't know the full story, but he came in around this time. I think he might have been responsible for some of these investments in a good way. He, invested our money. So on February 2nd, 1 week before we sign on this, $22.5 million deal, we purchased the following treasuries at B&D. 18-month for 4.40%, 12-month for 4.67%, 6-month for 4.72%. So these are all significantly higher than the CDs that we signed for 1 week later. So then we sign on February 9th. Well, on February 14th, we receive a bid from Choice Bank offering 6 and 12-month CDs at 4.5% versus 4.1% on the $22.5 million CD purchase at First International. So these are investment instruments that we actually purchased or received bids for at around the same time we made one of our biggest investments in years, and they all outperformed the CDs at First International. So even the 1 month CD we purchased at First International yielded less than our Wells Fargo money market. And we've seen no record, I've seen no record that we received bids from other banks before the purchase of the $22.5 million at First International on February 9th. I'd be happy to be corrected. I just simply haven't seen the information. I went through some of the investment files that we had. But I would be happy to see the evidence of that. We took delivery of the CDs on February 16th, and 12 days later, First International had increased their money market rate where our 22.5 million had previously been deposited from 1% at the end of January to 4.17 on February 28th, which was higher than the CDs we purchased 12 days earlier. So if you, I'll refer again to the chart on page 6, and that may help visualize that, what I just described. So this specific February 16th CD purchase in 2023 alone yielded $66,000 less than the purchase of a similar term treasury or similar term treasuries purchased on the same date. So it's a $66,000, consequence, basically knowing on February 2nd that treasuries were paying significantly more. So that whole scenario that I just described happened under the previous auditor treasurer, Vedder. Now, if we fast forward to after Auditor Treasurer Swanskowski took office on May 1st, 2023, in mid-May of 2023, half of our $22.5 million CD, purchase matured at First International. So at this point in time, the county had approximately $30 million in money markets between Wells Fargo and First International. The Auditor Treasurer's Office made the decision to deposit $11.3 million into First International money markets. On this date, on the date that the deposit was made, May 23rd, a 1-month treasury yielded nearly 1% more than the First International money market. So the consequence of this decision at those rates is $9,000 a month. Well, the rates held. Now, as it happened, treasuries came down slightly, and the money markets rose at First International rose significantly, but they didn't beat the treasury rate at any time in 23. So, but based on that information that we had at the time, treasuries would have been the better investment if you wanted liquid cash. 1 month is pretty liquid, in my opinion. So in total, all of the combined activity at First International, so that would be these items that we discussed and then whatever happened for the rest of the year, that underperformed the Treasury benchmark by $283,000. Those are the two items that I wanted to highlight, the two specific, I guess, case studies, maybe you could call it that. I made some comments about benchmarking and accounting. Certainly there's things that have happened in 2024 that need to be brought to the commission. It doesn't have to be tonight. I could certainly stop and stand for any questions.
That was a lot of information. Commissioners, questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Wood.
so if you totaled all that under investing, I call it, what does that come to?
I think if we total it all,
Let's be clear about what we're talking. We're talking 2023 and
all 7 quarters combined.
2023, all year,
And then
3 quarters of this year.
just not the last quarter of 24.
What I come up with, if we remove that bond-related activity I mentioned where we liquidated our investments so we could restructure them, I come up with $1.35 million, so $1,355,000 under the benchmark.
And who was in charge of all this?
Well, we had 2 auditors. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
Commissioner Munson?
Lee, you had made the comment earlier about not just underperforming, but not investing. So of that 1,300,000, roughly what, 55 or 60% comes from not investing?
It's probably closer to 70. I mean, because what I've got, maybe 65. I think you could say 65, 2/3, because there's about 59% of 23, and then about 77% of 24. 24 was part of the reasons why our investments performed, the ones we're tracking anyway, performed better in '24 is those rising money market rates. So we went from, like, we were above 5, I think, for much of the year in those money markets.
I mean, I can certainly understanding choosing to diversify and make decisions of which direction to go with an investment. I don't understand not investing. That's where I'm having a hard time with that.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Woodcock?
can I ask if these treasury investments, are they guaranteed by federal government? Are they guaranteed by anybody, FDIC or anything like that? I mean, there was an aversion to buying treasuries for some reason. I don't know why, but are the treasury benchmark figure that you're using, comparing apples to apples, is the treasury guaranteed?
It's, the treasuries are backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. They do have some agency bonds that I believe are not backed, but they can still be AAA rated. So yes, they are. And the benchmark itself, I mean, wherever possible, we're taking a similar term investment, like a 6-month CD, and comparing it with a 6-month treasury as of the exact date we made that decision to buy. So that's fairly accurate
Comparison. Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Woodcock?
So when you go buy a U.S. Treasury, you can buy them for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or a year or whatever you want to cover the liquidity portion of what we require. Because we have cash flow problems all the time when we get a lot of money collected right now in December, January, and February, but we got to make that work for the rest of the year too. So you can do that with the Treasury. You can buy a 30-day or a 60-day or a 90-day. You're not tying yourself up.
The rates that we got off the Treasury site were, I think, 30, say 4-week, 8-week, 13-week, 26-week, 52-week. When we did the bond deal, set up the escrow fund, I mean, we were buying them to you can buy things that are maturing on a specific date. If you need something on, January 17th, you can get that on the secondary market. But yeah, to your point, yes, you can. If there's all kinds of options out there.
Okay.
Any other questions, Commissioners?
Yeah, sure.
Commissioner Bakken?
So Lee, in your opinion, is it more a case of lack of a robust policy or lack of following a policy that's in place? Do you see any holes with our current policy?
Well, other than the areas where we've tried to, the policy is from the Government Finance Officers Association. I think the deputy finance director that I mentioned and the current auditor treasurer are the ones who, picked the policy. Our comment to the auditor treasurer from the finance department has been, we really need to make this fit our organization. We have to define these terms. What is over-concentrated mean to us? What are our liquidity needs? So yeah, there are some areas where we need to make the policy fit our organization, but those are the areas I mentioned where we haven't been able to get a response. It really is just not following the policy. I really just think it's just a lack of awareness, just neglect.
So how does that play into the investment strategy as far as, because we have an investment group that we work with for the policy, as far as any changes in investment strategy? The strategy itself, would you say, is sound, or are there some things we need to look at to improve that as well?
I mean, at this point, I think if you exclude the BND stuff that's off books and just look at what's on our books, we're like 80% money market, which is quite honestly probably mostly treasuries anyway, because we have to be in these government money markets, and so they have to be these, investments that are allowable by century code. And quite honestly, I mean, if you look at the rates, they trail treasuries. They peak right where treasuries peak, but minus, a few points. So I don't know that I would describe what we are doing as strategic. I think we're just doing in all these different areas, we had a CD at Choice, so let's renew a CD at Choice. We had this money market at First International. Let's keep the money market at First International. We have the ARPA fund, we have the ARPA money in this account, so we get a new ARPA check, let's put it in this account. It's just kind of whatever we've been doing in all these different, areas, we just keep doing it.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Woodcox.
how long does it take to check the rates on a CD or a money market? How long does that take to? I mean, we got like 7 banks we work with. So you could call each one of these and say, okay, what's your money market rate today? They'll tell you 5.4. And the next one will tell you 5.3. That shouldn't take that long, should it? Half hour?
I think you could send an email out, probably a bid, email out to the usual suspects, and I shouldn't have said it that way, but you could send it out to your bankers.
And they would respond saying, here's our rate today, and
Yeah.
for
I think
30
they
days,
would,
60 day, 90 day, whatever term we want, or what, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks for that, Lee.
Oh, one more,
Okay.
I forgot.
Okay, Commissioner Woodcox.
We collected sales tax for the jail, the bonding thing that we did every month for how many years, 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever it was. And we were depositing that in Bank of North Dakota every month, right?
That is correct.
And they should be deposited at what rate? Not just the money market rate was like way back, was only 0.025 or something, but should we be getting a better rate than that? And if it's every month, we should be doing it automatically, which doesn't take a lot of time. You set it up electronically, and they deposit it right away, and we would be drawing appropriate interest, not 0.025.
What we did is that my office called BND, and because we are about to get our first 1 cent sales tax deposit, okay, that's on its way. We cannot split that deposit with the Treasury, and we looked at the form. It's a check the box type of thing. It's sales tax. So the sales tax, the half-cent sales tax goes to the bond account. We're about to have a 1 cent sales tax go to the bond account, okay?
Right.
The half-cent is stuck there until we get the escrow set up, which we're working on it. So what we worked on with BND is, could you please transfer this, set up a safekeeping account, that's what they call it, an investment account. Could you please transfer this half-cent, this additional half-cent, we're getting a cent, so the extra half-cent that you're about to get, could you please transfer that to, I think it has to go to our checking account first, which we have, and then we would direct BND to invest it, and they would invest it on our behalf, which moves it to the safekeeping account. Now, the thing about it is, they do this basically, there's very low fees because we're a municipality. It's not something they advertise. I shouldn't be saying this at the microphone, but they agreed to do it partly because we're kind of stuck right now between the bond and getting this sales tax account. The thing is, they're not our investment guy. They're, you know what I mean? So they can provide this service for us, but we need to stay on top of it. And we need to direct them, could you please take this amount of money and invest it in that instrument for this period of time? So we need to be directing them. We're big enough as a county that we can do that, but if we do not direct them, which has been happening with the trust account, then it goes to their money market, which is like an average of all the money markets in the area because they can't compete. And so you get one guy paying, 0.1%, and it drags the average down to 0.6%. So we just need to be mindful. So I was really hesitant about this whole, probably we could have them transfer the money. The thing about it is that there's higher fees at different places. But I was really hesitant about this whole arrangement, which is out of my hands anyway, because the county auditor needs to approve all this stuff because we haven't been timely investing at BND. And so it's like, well, they can do it for really cheap, but if we're not staying on top of it, it's going to get really expensive versus hiring someone to do it, which quite honestly, that was one of the first comments I made to the county auditor way back in January, was that I told him I think you should hire it done. Was at a meeting with myself, former finance director Clyde Thompson, and the county auditor. We were discussing the sales tax bond. A week or two after I started, I said, do we have an investment guy? We should get an investment guy.
Would they be a full-time
No,
employee or just a
I think you just hire. I mean, you get bids and stuff.
by the
but-
hour or something like that?
I mean, we're big enough that we could do it ourselves, but I think under the circumstances, that was my thought, at least at the time, knowing that the, county auditor had been on the job less than a year. I thought, hire it done, write a check.
I'm done, I think.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Munson.
This is more for State's Attorney Lawyer. By century code, is the auditor the only person that can invest funds for the county?
I can't remember if it's the duties under the treasurer or the auditor, but
Okay.
it's one of the two, and since we've got ours
It-
combined.
It is in century code. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
I'll just add one thing real quick. We
ahead.
did look at some comparable municipalities, City of Fargo, City of Bismarck, Cass County, and they're very heavy in treasuries and municipal bonds, U.S. agency notes, but an awful lot of treasuries in their 2023 audit reports. They've moved into treasuries because they're chasing yield.
And we have none.
We probably have more than we think because we're so heavy in money markets. We
they
actually
are-
have an awful lot of treasuries right now if you consider our bond account, because we just bought $32 million or $31 million worth of treasuries to fund our escrow. But last year at 2023 at year end, we were pretty limited. We had some in BND, but nothing in the rest of the county, in the rest of our funds.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioners? Thanks, Lee. Appreciate that. Okay, we're bouncing around. We just did 8. No.
According to open meeting laws, I'm contacting my attorney.
Yeah, you go ahead and
We're
contact your
violating my
attorney.
right
This
as
is
a
a
citizen.
public meeting, and you have the right to attend, but you don't have a right to speak if the chair doesn't. Correct.
Do you even live in Burleigh County? Do you? Do you live in Burleigh County?
Regardless of where I
Do you
live.
No.
live in Burleigh
I
County?
own property in Burleigh
I'm
County.
offended that you came here and disrupted what we came to hear is a very productive meeting, and you came here, you don't even
No,
live
I
here.
actually-
Sit
I-
down
No,
and be
you
quiet,
can't.
because
Hey.
you're disrupting the meeting.
Okay,
I think you're disrupting.
Kelly?
Sure.
Callie? Thanks. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9, which is County State's Attorney Lawyer. 2 items, victim witness grant funding, and then a continuation of discussion regarding County Auditor Treasurer. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. So all my materials are in your packet. The first one is the victim witness grant funding. We report by the time of the final budget what our grant is, because they don't award those till the beginning of September. So in September of 2024, the federal VOCA grants, basically how they work is the feds pay that grant, the state is the grantee, and then they allocate those to sub-grantees. Our victim witness program is one of the sub-grantees of those VOCA grants. So we were awarded $110,285 for the period of October 1, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, because that's the time period of that grant. We were notified by a memo on December 9th, 2024, that the state was allocating additional VOCA grants to all the subrecipients, including our victim witness program. And so we were awarded an additional $50,715 for the period of October 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. All the money that basically what happens is we spend the money, we send in the proof of that to the program, and then they reimburse the county for that. What we use those funds for is salary. So basically every 2 weeks when we do payroll, we send in the payroll, the timesheets for our victim witness coordinators to designate how much time they've spent on VOCA materials, and then we get a reimbursement back for that through the grant. And so it won't be any problem for us to be awarded that additional money through that time period. So I just wanted you to be aware of that when that money comes in. That's where it's from.
Okay, so there was no action required on that?
No, just a notification
Mr.
that
Chairman?
to everybody that.
Commissioner Woodcock?
Good time to say, what does victim witness do?
So our victim witness coordinators fulfill our obligations under state law and Marcy's law, the Constitution, regarding victims. So they work with victims to get them resources in the community. They also are the liaison between the victim and the state's attorney's office and the court. So they have the right to attend hearings, for instance. And our victim witness coordinator is the one that advises them of all the dates and times of hearings so that they can come and speak to the court if they wish. They also facilitate meetings between us and victims. They also, like I said, find programs for victims in the community to help them out with other things that we can help them out with.
Great, thank you.
So that's just a brief overview of what they spend all their days doing.
Any other questions about that? Okay, thank you. Next.
Yep, so the next topic, you had asked some questions last meeting regarding both removal of a position from office and also converting an elected office to an appointed office. So basically in your packet, I've got a summary of the laws associated with that. As I indicated, a petition for removal by a governor of an elected official. That officer has to be guilty of misconduct, malfeasance, crime in office, neglect of duty in office, or habitual substance abuse or gross incompetency. Basically what happens in that scenario is either the public can file a petition if enough signatures are gathered on their petition, or the state's attorney can file a petition with the governor requesting removal of an officer. What happens with that petition at that point, whether it's initiated by the public or whether the state's attorney files that goes to the governor's office, and the governor sends it to the attorney general, who has 30 days to investigate the petition. If they recommend that a special commissioner be appointed, that'd be a hearing officer, then a hearing can be held regarding the petition that was filed. If the Attorney General's office doesn't believe it meets the criteria and recommends no special commissioner be appointed, then that petition is dead at that point. If the governor does, if it's recommended to have a hearing, basically, and the governor agrees that a hearing should be held, then it's kicked back to the state's attorney to prosecute that matter. The state's attorney can request the attorney general to do that, or with the governor's permission, get another state's attorney from another state to do that. Historically, I used to work for the Attorney General's office for a short period of time, and this did come up while I worked there. And so typically what happens is, because the state's attorney works with the official that's being requested to be removed, they request assistance from the Attorney General's office, and then the Attorney General will send an attorney to do that. Once the hearing is had, then the special commissioner will make a recommendation to the governor as to whether or not the person should be retained in office or removed, and then the governor can act on that recommendation however he sees fit. Another one is recall of elected officials. There's information in there regarding what the public can do for initiating a recall. Basically, that is gathering signatures. The petition has to put a reason down for why the official is being recalled. And then it requires 25% of the electors of the county signing the petition, and that's 25% of the electors who voted in the preceding general election for the office of governor in that county, since we're talking about county officials. So even though there might have been 70% of people who voted, if not all of those people voted for the office of governor, it only looks at those who voted for the office of governor when they're looking at those numbers. That petition is then given to the county auditor to verify. If there are deficiencies, the county auditor needs to notify the petitioner, who has some time to correct those. If they're not corrected, then that's dead as well. If it does get verified, then basically the issue is placed on the ballot for the public to vote. And it's not the issue, it's basically there's a special election for that position, and anybody can run for that position, the person that's being petitioned for recall or anybody else who wants to run, just like we would do any other election. And then I indicated that there's a statute regarding resignation of officers and who they resign to, and I included that in there. And that would be those statutes. Then the second portion of that is converting an elected office to an appointed office. Again, you have to be careful about doing that because you're taking power from the people then to elect an official. And if it's an appointed office, then it would be the county commission that would appoint that that official. So the county can do that based on our home rule charter. It says the commission has to follow state law to do that. And state law requires that the county commission can make a resolution to convert an office, and its specific offices. It's county auditor or county treasurer or county recorder. They can make a resolution to convert those to an appointed office.
And this is what it's all about. You guys want to take the vote away from the people. Right there you go, you guys. Home rule charter, these guys want his job.
And
so they can
You know, you're about out of line,
I'm
ma'am.
out of here. This is a bunch of. You know
Okay,
what this is?
that's
Thank
probably
you.
good
They
for
want
you.
the home rule charter.
Out.
Thank you.
Out.
Thank you.
They
Out.
want to take the vote away from the people.
So
Nobody
if you
is
adopt
proposing that
a
yet.
preliminary resolution redesignating a county office as appointed, you basically have to hold public hearings, get public input regarding that, and it's also for dissemination of information. Why you're doing it, what's the purpose behind it, how is it going to work? Once that preliminary resolution is filed, then it has to be printed, the plan, the complete plan, has to be printed in the paper for one time during 2 different weeks within 30 days following that resolution. That's at the time that you would hold public hearings. After that, community forums or other suitable means, again, to receive comment, to encourage public discussion, to disseminate information. And then within 2 years after adoption of that preliminary resolution, the board can have a final resolution to either approve or amend the plan or approve it and implement it according to the terms that were already filed. The final resolution may be referred to the qualified electors by a petition protesting the plan. That's only 10% of the number of qualified electors voting for the last governor race. It's got to be filed with the county auditor 30 days after the final resolution is adopted. And then, again, the auditor determines whether or not that's a verified petition. Any insufficiencies can be cured by the petitioners. And then it is, if there is a verified petition, then it's put on the ballot for the public to vote on. So that's the information that I included based on our discussion at the last meeting. Does anybody have any questions regarding that issue?
Commissioner Schwab.
You know, like with the auditor's office, is there any guidelines from the state and what qualifications you have to have, or can anybody, including my dog, run for it?
So for the elected officials for the county, and that includes county auditor, county treasurer, ours are combined, like I said, county recorder and county commissioner, you have to be 18 years old and a resident of the county. That's the qualifications for all of those elective offices. The only 2 elective offices that in the county that have additional requirements are for state's attorney, you have to be a licensed attorney to hold the position, and then for sheriff, you have to be a post-certified law enforcement officer.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Wood.
how do we change that? I mean, an
Talk to
auditor,
your legislator.
an auditor, I know you, is that the whole spiel you just? Because an auditor, I think, should be involved in business or CPA or did some accounting experience or something, because this is a complicated job and you come in there with nothing.
So you have to keep in mind that these laws apply across the state. And you have to be a resident of the county for which you're running for office. And counties like Slope or Bowman County, they have very little population. And so to find somebody in their population that could run for office, if you put too many restrictions on it, would be difficult. And so I mean, I don't know, you can talk to your legislator, but again, what you want proposed would apply to the entire state. And in some of those counties, I know they have combined offices between counties. The law allows for a lot of different things to happen. Okay. You can have a multi-district or multi-county auditor, and that's appointed by the 2 commissions. I mean, there's a lot of different things that have happened across the state, again, because it's hard to find people in those smaller counties.
Thank you.
One more
Commissioner
question.
Schwab?
Well, one more question. The appointed positions are that way, but, okay, can Commissioner Schwab here run for judge?
So you have to be qualified at the time that you take office. And in order to be qualified as a judge, you have to be a licensed attorney. So if you can go to law school and take the bar and pass that within the time frame that you apply for judge, then yes, you have to be qualified by the time you take office.
The reason I asked my question, I feel it kind of strange if there would be a way that you could put a qualification on, like an auditor's position.
Again, you'd have to take that up with the
Yeah,
legislature
yeah,
because
okay.
that's where that law comes from.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Munson?
If I can add, that's one of the reasons we have in the qualifications of the employees. We do have requirements in the auditor's office for people that have accounting backgrounds, or in the HR department, we have employees that have HR schooling. So, that's where we have the ability to make sure that we have qualified people in those offices.
Well,
But State Attorney Lawyer's right. You file a
The
petition,
thing-
you get on the ballot, then you can run for the office.
The thing about that is, staff in the county is more educated than what anybody, like I said, me or my dog would run. They would know more than we would because of their education.
I don't want to say this publicly because I've only had a few jobs in my life, but a lot of people could say that about their bosses,
Yeah,
that they
that's
know
true.
more than their boss. And a lot of the stuff too, even though by statute it belongs to the auditor, the duties can be delegated to people who are qualified in the office and know what they're doing. Understanding that if you delegate that to the wrong person, it's still, you on the line who is responsible for those duties. But that's a lot of what happens too within public office, because you do have to have qualified people on your job descriptions underneath them, filling those roles.
Yeah, that-
Fly my kite. In a nice way.
That assumes that the person that's in that elected position is still the responsible one that has to answer for these things.
Right. Because the duties do fall on the elected official, regardless of who it's delegated to. It's ultimately their responsibility.
Well, I don't know, but there was a lot of information presented tonight on this. And commissioners, do you want to have time to kind of digest that? Or do you want to?
I think there's a lot to digest here, and I'd be in
I
favor of
would-
tabling this.
I would agree. Thank you, State's Attorney Lawyer. I would entertain a motion.
I would move to table this to the next meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second and a third to table this to the next meeting. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Bakken,
Yes.
Schwab,
Yes.
Woodcox.
Yes.
Munson,
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. We'll move that forward to the next meeting.
Then we will automatically see it on there, right? Since you said,
Yes, that will
Okay.
be,
We
that
make
will
sure
be
that
on
it's on
the
there.
agenda for
Okay.
the next
January.
regular
Okay, great.
commission meeting. Say again? Somebody? Yeah, come on up. Just identify yourself, please.
Chris Lingenfelder, Burleigh County. I live in Driscoll, North Dakota. Listening to all this tonight, I honestly think it looks like it's going to be a lot of work to get rid of Mark. I think the best course of action, I don't think you're going to get rid of him, it would be that you sit down with them and work this out man to man. I think that's salvageable. I really do. I think this is an internal fight that can be fixed. I really do. And that's what my recommendation as one of your voters is: fix it, sit down, work it out. I really think this could go away with just about a 20-minute conversation. That's it. That's all I got.
Thanks for that. Anybody else want to say anything? Okay. Come on up, identify yourself. I think you already did. but-
I am Charles Tuttle. I do actually live half of the time in Bismarck and half of the time in Minot. I was just listening to your finance guy. I go to the school land board meetings. I go to the investment board meetings. You know, we lost $600 million in the school land board on school land trust 2 years ago. We lost $600 million. We paid fund managers $59 million to do that. We have Moody's that does our forecasting for us all the time, and they're always 25% off on our income forecast. What I saw tonight was we're losing sight of that this is the people's money. And if we have so much of this money that we're so worried about it being bankers and investment of it, okay, it needs to be returned to the people. That's one of the problems I see that we have here. I don't understand this. You know, we got Dickinson that has $66 million in the bank. Minot has $40 million. Now, they just voted to give themselves, their people, property tax relief with some of that money. We've got $300 million in Montreal County. I know numbers in North Dakota, I can tell you. And it looks as though we may be $4.5 million in the hole with the Bank of North Dakota. Folks, there's some issues going on in North Dakota where and we want to go to the legal issues that we're talking about here. You guys pay the Association of Counties. You pay for the Association of Counties. I went to the Association of Counties convention. You guys pay for everybody that goes to that convention their tickets. And do you know what the Association of Counties did? This lawyer should know this. They're on the list of the Kill North Dakota to oppose Measure 4, which is a clear violation of 16.1-10. Why aren't you prosecuting them? We have Michael Howe, who came out opposing a measure for, election integrity. Why aren't you prosecuting them? That's done in this county.
That you're getting a little off topic
No,
there.
we're talking about elections, and you have that. And you folks need to ask for your money returned, the taxpayers' money returned for 23 and 24 when they opposed those measures openly. And we had the House Speaker or the House Majority Leader and the Senate Majority Leader go out and actively oppose these measures. That's a clear violation of criminal law. And we had sheriffs, we had police chiefs telling their people all kinds of things. And if you want to talk about the HIPAA or Hatch Act, we had what's the hospital? Stanford. Stanford sent an email to every one of its employees in Burleigh County to vote no on Measure 4. You need to prosecute them. These are things, and I'll bring you affidavits. But this is the stuff we all need to start protecting the rights of the people. Not asking whether an auditor needs to be qualified to be an auditor. Okay? He has to have, first of all, he needs to understand the Constitution. And everybody here needs to understand our Constitution. The power is reserved to the people. And we shouldn't be looking for, and I'm glad this gentleman stood up here and said it needs to be fixed. There's obviously some personality issues going on. But whether you made $1.1 million versus, well, you could have made $700,000 more. Well, return that money to the people then.
He's going the opposite.
Thank you.
Commissioner Woodcox?
Yep. Before he comes up, I want to respond to you. Thank you for your comments. This is $1.4 million of money we should have collected, which is tax dollars. In other words, for us to provide those services, without that $1.4 million, we might have had to raise the property tax to do that. So this, oh yes.
He said because you didn't invest it here, you could have had 5% more.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
The principal is still going to be what you collected. The principal is what you're using to pay for those services. You're more worried about you making more money on the principal.
We're worried about making more money for the taxpayer because that replaces.
How much do you actually have? That's why I was curious, and I'll ask the state auditor. But how much actually cash on hand do you have? Because you lost. He said you had $23 million in one account when it was actually off the books. $40 million was off the books.
You're right.
I mean, I'm listening to this. I'm like, holy smokes.
Yes, you're right.
You guys don't even know how much money you have.
Oh, we do. Well, you still don't understand the principle. This is money that should have been invested properly. Okay, well then what's wrong with us trying that?
Their interest and give you more, but you don't know when that happens.
Yes, we do. You should know when that happens. As an auditor, you should have the responsibility of saying, hey, our CD's up, it's up. What are we going to do for it? What are we going to do next time? Okay, let's call around to the banks, find out what the new interest rate was, and do it. And he did not do that.
What you should be doing is pay your budget and whatever you have left over, return to the taxpayers.
We never get,
That's what you should
Well,
do.
Charlie, I don't think it's quite that easy. I mean, it's more complex than that, okay?
Yeah.
If
I
you
have
follow
to
what these
agree.
gentlemen have to, ladies and gentlemen have to deal with is in our county, but, so this is the third meeting in a row that we've come, and I really stayed here beyond CO2 discussion. A lot of people did, to hear, intelligent, thank you, Lee, and Mark, thank you for your presentation. And, Mark, for the little I know of you, I've always taken you to be a really decent guy, okay? And we have a choice here in the county, and as us citizens, we have a choice. You guys, water under the bridge, tough lesson learned, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. We learn lessons. This is one thing my dad was really good about. While we had to be held accountable for our missteps and our failures, and some of those were that we didn't do something that we should have. His thing was always, just don't do it again. So you as a county board, and you, Mark, we have a choice here to keep this elected official discontentment going on to the detriment of all of us, or to do what the one gentleman said and just sit down like grown adults and stop with the defending and the finger pointing. There were opportunities lost. There were. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. I, as a citizen, I'm hoping I speak on behalf of everyone else. I don't want to spend our time figuring out how to have you lose your job. I want to see you succeed at your job, Mark. And I want these guys to also work with you to help you do that. Whatever it takes, Mark. But you were elected by the people. My wife and I voted for you. I don't want to see this continue. I don't want to see it continue. I want to see you guys work it out and then learn from our mistakes. This is a very bright guy here. I always enjoy Lee's presentation. Work together. Instead of I'm an elected official, you're elected officials, and we're just going to keep battling each other because, you can't touch me. That's BS. That's doing us a disservice. I want to see you guys work this out and stop with any other option. And if you're going to dig your heels in, slam your door shut and say, leave me alone, I'm elected, we're paying the price for that. So let's figure this out. Don't make the same mistakes again as we move into 2025. And we've got huge issues as a county to deal with. We're fortunate that we have money to figure out how to invest and to do with instead of what do we have to cut, what do we have to cut. We have the CO2 pipeline fiasco battle in front of us. We have roads and bridges. On the agenda here, we're going to be talking about a bridge. So I want to come to these meetings and hear intelligent, exchange of ideas and counter ideas and a good debate, and not, somebody standing up and defending you, Mark, because and yes, you have a right to defend yourself. You put on a good presentation. Let's figure this out and stop this bullshit. I mean, I'm just serious. I've been reading about it. I heard you on the radio Friday. I've been reading about it and listening to it at meetings. It's unnecessary, it's unproductive, and it needs to stop. Let's figure it out.
Amen.
Commissioners, Dr. Steve Nagel, resident of Bismarck here. I just have a few questions for clarity. Is it okay if I ask questions of specifically around the benchmark?
Sure, go ahead.
With the benchmark, is there one benchmark or is there multiple ones that you can choose from?
We didn't have a benchmark. You can choose whatever you want.
Right.
We didn't set a benchmark.
So what you're comparing it to is what I'm asking is the comparison that you made with what we're doing. Is that something you picked, or was there like a standard that you're using?
We selected treasuries partly because you can get historical rates. That was part of the reason. There are other funds that I mentioned in Philadelphia.
Want him to come up?
Pennsylvania, as a liquid asset.
You want to come up to the mic if people can't hear you?
We chose the treasuries partly because there's historical data. So that's a big part of the reason why. I think any government benchmark, you're going to see treasuries show up, is the thing. We, as in my office, don't have a problem saying, yeah, be 100% in treasuries when they're paying, 5.5%. That doesn't seem like a contradiction to us, or an over-concentration. But really, it's the auditor treasurer who defines the benchmark. He did not do that. Now, I don't think we specifically asked him, I'm looking at my deputy here, to set up a benchmark. But we asked him to do other things relative to the policy, and we couldn't get a response. So we set the benchmark.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Munson.
If I can make a comment to that, and Lee had mentioned this earlier, even though we have a 12-page investment policy, there was nothing in the policy that set the benchmark. So the finance department chose that.
Because it's a higher yield.
Commission, if I may?
Yep.
Right.
If I may?
You know this thing's dragging on, but go ahead.
I appreciate it. So, according to our policy manual.
Briefly.
Yeah, I'll read it fast. Performance standards, the investment portfolio will be managed in accordance with the parameters specified within the policy. The portfolio should obtain a market average rate of return during the market economic environment of stable interest rates. A series of appropriate benchmarks should be established against which the portfolio performance shall be compared on a regular basis. The benchmarks should be reflective of the actual investments being purchased. The way I want to understand that, Treasury benchmark against Treasury investments, CD benchmark against CD investments, money market benchmark against money market. That way we're not comparing apples to
oranges.
oranges.
Thanks for that.
That's the way I
Go ahead,
understand
get anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is it's easy to isolate things and look back and say, are we right or are we wrong? For the same thing, we could be looking at the Providence building and saying, how much money are we losing there every month with the building, with there's rooms setting empty, floors setting empty.
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
We made a decision on that Provident Life building, period. We're working on it. And our auditor is still fighting the decision. Now, you explain that to me. The county commission is supposed to run this thing. We're trying to get it done, and he's out running it down. Would you run an office like that? Do you have employees and let them do that?
I think
I'm not going to weigh in for that because I don't know.
Hang on.
I don't know the details on that.
I think we've had enough.
However,
I think so too.
I guess what I'm going to say is that you can second guess that all day long. And at the same time, I know personally one of the tenants that had to leave because of what was happening in the building, and the city lost out on 140 grand of revenue because you guys couldn't honor the lease.
What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, I know the guy personally.
What company?
What are
is
you
that?
talking about?
It was Bizman Online.
Oh,
You know anything
that's
about
a whole nother can of worms too. So
Okay, all right.
He-
You're getting off, you're kind of off topic here.
Well, I guess
Thanks.
the point being is it's easy to second guess looking back, and that's all I'm saying. And I do understand what the last gentleman had said, and hopefully we can make a way to get along.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Losing track of where I'm at here.
10A.
10A.
10B, sorry.
Okay, 10B, standalone election computer discussion. This is kind of brief, fortunately. One of the issues that was brought to our attention, both Commissioner Bakken and I met with Secretary of State's office, and there was an issue with a standalone computer. And the thing of it was with the standalone computer is that this was a machine that was never supposed to have any contact to the internet. The goal for the state and the county is to make sure that elections are secure. So this machine is never supposed to have connected to the internet. It has its own system. It's an inside job, so to speak. And right before the election, we found out that this election computer had been compromised. And we don't know how or why, but something was connected to the internet that instantly compromised the machine with what they call military-grade encryption. So the computer was not able to be used. And it was the elections coordinator from the state that figured that out. And so ultimately, the machine had to be removed from Burleigh County and had to go back to the vendor in order to be reformatted and reprogrammed and reinitialized. And just so when you're reviewing bills, you know that there will be an additional bill from the state of North Dakota for that process to the tune of like $4,000. So, but then the thing that got my attention here, and I should probably just read this, but during the conversations about the Provident Building remodel, the emergency manager requested a site visit from what's called CISA, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Administration of the Department of Homeland Security. And so they have a program that's it's called a security assessment at first entry. And so the emergency manager asked for that for the Provident Building because we want to get ahead of any security concerns, specifically for the facility itself, how it relates to elections and equipment, where that machine is kept, and what's all going on there. Now, this particular report, we're going to consider that, as far as I know, we're considering that to be an exempt record. So it's not available for public view, because it is a security assessment of Burleigh County. And so I'll just kind of read this, and then I think the recommendation, and I think it's okay, is I think the county commissioners can put eyes on that and read it, and I kind of suggest you do, because what irritates me, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency field operations staff performed a security assessment at first entry on July 30th, 2024, upon request by Lisa, the previous elections coordinator. The Protective Security Advisor identified potential vulnerabilities and suggested options to reduce them. The report was provided to the elections coordinator on August 1st, 2024. Recommendations were not shared with the portfolio holder, and it is unknown at this time whether any of the suggested options have been completed. Okay, so the intent in putting this out is so that you commissioners should probably, and I think it's okay to have eyes on, because there were specific security measures that we should have been addressing and could have been addressing easily that were not, and we ended up with a compromised elections computer, even though we were able to recover from it. So that was the point in that one. Okay, commissioners? And like I said, that is not a public document. That'll be considered to be exempt. It's a security document. Commissioner Woodcock.
Where does this, I didn't even know we had one until we found out there's something wrong. Where does this, in whose office is this?
My understanding, the standalone computer was being in the office of the elections coordinator.
Okay. Wasn't there something about a thumb drive that
Right.
came back and forth and
Right.
disappeared?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there is a letter from the Secretary of State's office that kind of delineates that a little bit. I didn't have time to make a copy of it, but there is a letter about that. Okay, so we're going to move on. Consideration of auxiliary board applications. Okay. Did you want to follow up on that, or what are we?
Yes, give me one.
What do you want to do? I don't,
These are applications that received after the packet went out. Some of you may have received these already. I don't have enough copies for them.
I've got this one.
I give you some, right before the meeting, I give you a stack of 3 papers. These are all by itself.
I've got it.
I've got this.
I don't know.
Okay.
Here.
So I received those after the packet went out already.
Okay. You know,
So, for your reference here at the front of this item here, the Bismarck Planning Commission, as he be an ETA member, there's 1 position open for that. Burleigh County Housing Authority, 1 position open for that. Burleigh County Human Service Zone Board, 1 position open for that. Burleigh County Park Board, 2 positions open for that. Burleigh County School District Reorganizational Board, 3 positions. Burleigh County Water Resource Board, 2 positions. And then we also have a position open for the Missouri Valley Complex Committee for a junior high school rodeo appointee, 1 position. So those are the different positions that are available right now. I believe you have a application for a park board down there, as well as the Water Resource District, I want to say. Yeah, Water Resource Board, correct.
What's the name on that one?
Andrea Toman.
Okay.
Commissioners, in regards to the application for the Bismarck Planning Commission ETA member, we have an application from a current member of the board, that's Trent Logan. He's with the Burleigh County Sheriff's Department. He's been doing a great job on the Planning Commission, and I would like to see him continue.
I would move to approve Trent Longan to the planning.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second for Trent Long. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Munson.
Yes.
Hawken.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. Next one would be Burleigh County Housing Authority. I'm not sure which applications that is.
I would move to approve Cynthia Chavez for that board. She's the only applicant for the board, and she currently is sitting.
Second.
Yeah, motion and a second for Cynthia Chavez. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Munson.
Yes.
Bakken.
Yes.
Schwab.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. Burleigh County Human Service Zone Board, 1 position.
Mr. Chair, we have
Commissioner
an
Munson.
applicant in the room that has said she'll serve on any board we see fit.
Oh, yeah?
Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
That would be
That would be
Kelly?
Yep.
As far as the Human Service Board, the one applicant that we had, I believe that is a sitting board member.
Which,
I didn't see one.
you might have been saved by the bell.
Did we have a sitting board member on that, Mark?
Let me see here. Service Zone Board. Give me one moment. I just want to verify.
There is one I see that was kind of another any board. Basically, I only see 2 that say any board.
You want to go on to a different one, or you want to stay with this one? Oh, here he comes.
I don't know that we need to really belabor the thing. It's the same qualifications, I guess, or same application. which is for any board, so. Did you have a preference on?
You want to be a county commissioner?
Well, the Human Service Zone Board is pretty significant board.
Did you get a, it was my understanding Trevor Burnett was reapplying for that, who was a current member?
I thought we appointed him at the last
Okay,
meeting,
that,
though.
all right.
I remember the name.
My confusion then. So he was appointed, so we still had the other position then. Okay.
Right.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we moved that to this housekeeping or if we
No,
did that last, okay.
I believe that,
All right,
that
thank
was
you.
at the director's request.
Yep, it was. So, okay, just wanted to make sure that went through, so, thank you.
Okay, commissioners, what do you want to do with that one? You want to move on or maybe see if anybody else wants to apply before we decide, or instead of committing? It's
Mr. Balkins, your portfolio.
Would you have interest in Human Service Zone? Okay, I would make a motion to accept your application then.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the application of Kelly Berglund for Human Service Zone. Any further comments or questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Munson?
Yes.
Bakken?
Yes.
Schwab?
Yes.
Woodcox?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
being willing. Burleigh County Park Board, there's 2 positions open, and I think there's multiple applicants.
I believe we have at least 4
Yeah,
applicants.
we have 4 applicants. I would move to approve Errol Bain and Jeffrey Herman. They've served the last term that I've been around. They've done a great job. One of the applicants put an application in just in case somebody didn't apply to make sure we had someone. Mr. New did that. I received one today. I didn't have a chance to visit with him, but I'm happy moving forward with the 2.
Okay, that's a motion.
I'll make a
Yes.
motion to approve those 2 candidates.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the 2 existing County Park Board members for another term. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Munson?
Yes.
Bakken?
Yes.
Schwab?
Yes.
Woodcox?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. Burleigh County School District Reorganization. I don't think I saw an application for that.
We didn't receive any applications for that one. I can't even tell you last time they met or the function. I think it's typically when there's a change of a school district, that's when this group gets involved. To my knowledge, they haven't met in years. So.
Okay, so since there's no applicants and no,
Mr. Chairman.
we
Mr.
have
Chairman.
Commissioner Woodcock.
That's one of my portfolios, and that is a committee that only meets periodically. And our superintendent of schools, he usually goes around and scouts for somebody, and he enlists somebody. So if he's probably not even aware that one is up, but I'll talk to him and get him to shake the bush and see what we can come up with.
Find an applicant.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we could appoint this one that's at any board.
Well,
No, I don't
they
think
gotta
we
live.
wanna
They
do
gotta.
that there.
They'll have to
Yeah.
live in the rural
I get it, yeah.
area.
Yep. Okay, we'll keep that one open for now.
I would move to table that position.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion is second to table that one for now. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Bakken?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodcox?
Yes.
Commissioner Munson?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. Next, Burleigh County Water Resource Board.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner
That's
Woodcock.
one of my portfolios also, and Roger Smith has applied again. He is a current incumbent, and he would like to re-up, so I would nominate Roger Smith to fill one of the 2 positions.
You want to add Andrea Thomas?
You want to do them both?
Yeah.
Yeah, do them both together.
Okay, I also have an application with Chuck Mischel. He is very well qualified. He is currently involved with the Certificate Advisory Committee, North Dakota Environmental Quality. So he is involved with water districts already, and I've talked to him, and he is very willing to serve and looks forward to it. So I would move that we approve these 2.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the 2 you mentioned. Commissioner Woodcock's mentioned. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Bakken?
Yes.
Schwab?
Yes.
Woodcox?
Yes.
Munson?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries. Missouri Valley Complex Committee, Junior High School Rodeo appointee, 1 position. I don't see any.
We don't have one at this time.
Okay.
I would move to table that position until potential candidates are identified.
Perfect, thank you.
I would put my app in, but I'm too young, too old.
So you gave up on riding
You're going to be a
broncs
lawyer.
already?
You're going to be a lawyer.
They don't let you mutton bust anymore?
Nope,
Okay, that's the last one of those
I'm not young enough.
to deal with. Sorry it took so long, Marcus.
Could've moved
County
him up.
Engineer Hall.
Well, usually he has so many that he takes half the meeting, so it's good that he waits every once in a while.
to be last.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioners. I got two items on the agenda this evening that I want to go over with you. The first item is a pavement waiver request. This pavement waiver request was from Jason and Mary up on Sandy River Drive. I'm not going to try to butcher their last name, so I'm horrible at last names, and I apologize even without trying. And this is basically reconsideration of a waiver, the same particular piece of roadway that was denied in 2016. In 2016, the county board denied a waiver request that was requested by Jack Jones. And this was for a lot split in that area, and that they were dividing that particular piece of property up into 3 lots. And under our policy at that time, Fernwood Drive, from Sandy River Drive down to the southern portion of that particular lot would have to be reconstructed and paved. The county board had some discussion going back and forth on different things on that particular request at that time. And one of the things that came up is that the MPO and the county had already approved extending Fernwood Drive down to River Road. Now, I've included in your packet the property that we're considering here, and then the extension of Fernwood down to River Road. And at that time, the board felt that if they didn't have that developer build that particular road, then at some point in the future, the county residents would have to be building that road, and therefore other individuals would be on the have to pick up the bill. Since that time, we've kind of changed our resolution and our approach to these, so it's a little bit different at this point. At this time, the individuals are proposing to do just a lot split, which would be just put 2 lots at this location, not 3 lots at this location. Under the policy that we have currently, the same amount of road would need to be reconstructed and paved. That's basically Fernwood Drive from Sandy River Drive down to the south end of the property. However, at this point, we do add the part of our resolution that basically states this particular approval of this doesn't preclude the county or the township from coming back later on and saying to the individuals that if we need to rebuild that road, they're going to be involved in the costs associated with that particular operation. So there's a proposed resolution in your packet to grant the waiver. I would recommend approval, but I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Woodcox.
Yes.
Commissioner Munson.
Yes.
Commissioner Bakken.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwab.
Yes.
Chairman Bittner.
Yes, motion carries. Next.
Thank you. The next item I have on the agenda is Commissioner Schwab and I have talked about this particular bridge for quite some time. And we just wanted to have a brief discussion, after considering the way the meeting's gone tonight, a brief discussion on this particular bridge. This is a bridge located on 236th Street Southeast, about 4.3 miles south of Highway 10. This particular bridge is a timber deck bridge with the timber beams and timber piling that hold back the abutment. It is in a bad way, and it does have a posted load of 10 tons on it right now at this point. I did last week send out to you the inspection reports. The DOT inspects these bridges every 2 years. We felt that we needed to stay on top of that, so we've done one in between that point too, just to make sure deterioration isn't catching up on us quicker than we thought. So I included both of those reports that I sent out to you last week.
At this time, we've been trying to get this bridge replaced, or trying to get funding for having this bridge replaced. Back in 2021, we applied for federal bridge funds. The DOT did grant us some funds for doing this. They stated at that time that we would get the funds in 2024. Unfortunately, largely because of the inflation we've seen in construction projects, they had to delay that project to 2026. Commissioner Schwab and I are both very concerned that this may get delayed again at some point in the future, and we're very concerned at the current deterioration of that bridge. So Commissioner Schwab asked me to come up with some options on how we could look at moving forward on this. And basically, after talking with the suppliers out there, as far as getting the culverts to us, we really have two options. Number one is we could move forward and replace this bridge in 2025. We could use local funds to pay for that particular bridge. We would have to tap the reserve funds within the county, because this is not a budgeted item, so we'd have to go back and look at that. Somewhere between $900,000 and $1 million for the replacement of that bridge. At this point, we're looking at. The second option is we could wait an additional year and hope that the DOT and the federal government comes through with their promise for money in 2026. At that point, there is a split on that. We would be on the hook for about $250,000 of local money for that project. We would have that done most likely by the fall of 2026 in this option number two. Option number one, we'd have that done by the fall of this 2025. One of the major concerns is that at some point we may have to close that particular bridge, and that is an important route for those individuals down in that area. And so it will either have to be closed because we believe the deterioration is to a point we can't go any farther, or God forbid we have an accident out there and that bridge collapses. And in that case, we're going to have to close the bridge, and we're going to have to wait to see what time and money that we have. So that bridge could be closed for up to probably a year, considering we can't do construction during the wintertime around here on those types of projects. So we do have a detour route out there. I just was out there today looking at that route. It's over a mile, down a mile, and back a mile. So it's a relatively short detour route for Burleigh County. However, the north-south route at this point is only summer maintenance. So there's snow across that particular road. We'd have to get that in shape. If we ever had to detour on that road, we would have to do some work on all three of those legs to make sure that that was capable of handling that. If we were able to fund it, we were control the replacement of the structure, I think we'd have to detour for 4 weeks. That's about the time we'd have to do it. So at this point, Commissioner Schwab wanted me just to bring this to your attention, and then we'll see where it goes from this point. I don't know if you want to add anything at that.
Well, I assume everybody's looked at the pictures.
I drove out there. I didn't cross it.
We not only will have to replace, close down that road, and I'm just about ready to recommend that. But to tell you how bad a shape that bridge is in, I'm going to have to send the weed officer down there to make sure the bridge is sprayed, because there's weeds growing out of the side, which tells me the timbers are full of dirt and they're rotting. And if you look in these pictures that you've got, you'll see the pilasters leaning one way on one side and on the other. I'm not doing my job if I don't get it replaced. Somebody's going to get killed down there.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner
can you quickly, the total cost of the bridge would be $910,000?
And engineering services, $900,000 to $1 million.
And it would all have to come out of reserve, general
that
fund?
would all be local funds, yes.
It would be out of general fund reserve,
Yeah.
not out of anything in the highway department. Am I correct?
At this point, we're all allocated to other projects.
Okay.
So that estimate on the cost include the cost of fixing that road up so you can use that as a bypass in the meantime, or is that?
What I would do on that is I would just use our local forces to take care of the fixing that up. We'd have to do some extensive blading and some graveling out throughout that way, and I just concentrate on getting that fixed up
We
there.
probably can't do that now.
At this point, it would be a little tough to do that. Yeah, you're correct.
Mr. Chairman.
I just did some digging here this last weekend.
Yeah.
And it was pretty tough going. Commissioner Woodcock.
It is a county road, not a township road.
The road that the bridge is on is a county road.
Okay.
How confident are you of your prices?
Commissioners, what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a stabilization of our prices for a product. For the last couple of years, we were just seeing jumps right and left, and I wouldn't say I wasn't very comfortable with them. But right now, these prices I'm pretty comfortable with.
Are you talking about the culvert? We're talking this square?
Yeah, these would be box culverts.
Box
Yep,
culvert,
big
right?
box.
2 or 3?
What's the?
Probably at 3 lines, I believe. Our engineering, the plans are about 95% done on this. The only one thing that we're still hanging out there is the core permit. So,
Yeah, at one time, there was a real long lead time on these type of culverts. What are we looking at?
yeah, that's correct, and we were worried that that would preclude us from doing anything at 25. We figured that with the lead time that they would not be able to provide it. At this point, we've talked to the suppliers, and they said if we do an April letting, and that's about as soon as we could get through all the hoops that we need to get through, we could still get the culverts this year and still get them in, still within our construction season. It'd be late fall, but we'd still be able to make it.
Okay, what's the value of those culverts, you know, cost?
I don't know off the top.
We have,
About 400,000 for the culverts themselves.
so regardless of when we did it, we would need those?
Yes, we would, and we could go ahead and purchase those. We looked at that option too, kind of going ahead and purchasing them, having those on stock, deliver them to Sterling, which isn't that far away as far as hauling them down there. The one thing is, and this always gets to be a mess, if we're dealing with if we're using federal monies to pay for them down the road, or have them involved in a federal project, then we have to meet all the federal requirements. And so the additional hoop jumping that we're going to have to go through may cost us some additional money on that. We're going to have to check.
Would that change the materials?
It probably wouldn't change the materials as much as change the certificates that they have to have for the materials. So,
Like, what would be different? Certificates?
certifications
I
for
know.
American-built, American-supplied products, different things like that.
Well, yeah,
So-
so what if we just said we're gonna specify American-made and American product?
I could check on what we can do to make sure.
'Cause that would make sense anyway.
Yeah, that we could make it work either way, you know, so.
Do you guys want to table this till the next meeting, or do you want to make a decision now? Because the problem I'm going to have with this bridge is if we don't fix it next year, and if we can and don't, and then we got to shut it down in the summer of next year, by the time we get going, this could be a 2 and a half, 2 year shutdown.
Right.
If we're going to shut it down, we need to fix it.
Right. Well,
Is
what I'm
basically what I'm saying.
thinking about on this is because it's kind of a no-brainer to just get the materials. Because then we're gonna have, even if we had federal funding, that would probably go towards the local match regardless, so we have the materials anyway. And then if we get some federal funding next year for that season, then we can apply it, and if we don't, then we can look at some additional funding, but at least we would have the materials, because they're not going to get cheaper tomorrow.
No.
And as long as we're using the American-made, American steel, you know, the whole thing that we should be doing anyway.
And if there's a hiccup with lead time, we're ready for it.
Yeah, and then we're just kind of ready, and then we have options on how to move forward. That seems like the best path for me, but.
Yeah, because of the federal money, that's not going to be available until the 2026 construction season. So we couldn't do the construction until 2026 then, even if we bought the culverts now. So that would still be delay on that.
Same thing applies, though, I think that.
But we're out 2 years instead of 1.
Yeah, but I think that realistically, that bridge looks dangerous to me. I don't really want to take a chance on holding my breath and crossing my fingers that somebody's going to live through that. I think that it's bad enough that realistically we should be looking at replacing it, but I think at the very least, at this point, we should get the materials ordered up and coming so that we can.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve option one and just move forward. I can't have a death on my hands either. We got to have that thing replaced.
I have a motion, is there a second? I have a motion, a second, any further discussion? Seeing none, call the roll.
Commissioner Woodcox?
Yes.
Munson?
Yes.
Bakken?
Yes.
Schwab?
Yes.
Chairman Bittner?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you. I'll move forward with that then.
I think we have to.
Yep.
It's just too dangerous. Because I mean, we got through harvest, surprisingly, and I am absolutely surprised that bridge didn't fall in the drink.
Harvest next year.
Well,
Right.
probably can.
Mr. Chair, one more thing.
This
And
would be under this.
on this same subject.
Okay.
Is
Go
it
ahead.
worth our time to have a conversation or send a letter to all of the farmers in the area that are using this bridge to let them know that we really can't have their tractors and combines and trucks on this road? Even though it's posted, can we take that extra step?
Yeah, it's posted at 10 tons. They shouldn't be on there anyway, but I suggest that would probably be a good idea. Right, it is a 10-ton.
Commissioners, I can look at doing some ad in the paper, something. Mailings are always a little tough to some of those areas out there and stuff like that. I can talk to the township officials
Yeah,
out
there you
there,
go, yeah.
communicate it with them. They can get the word out and stuff like that. We can do some stuff like that.
Spread the word.
Can we get some signage or something out there just to say that it's coming? Give somebody a heads up on it, that there's.
I can look into that.
Future road
Yep.
restrictions and, yeah, and then get those posted?
Yep, I can look at
It's
something
already
like that.
posted really low.
It is posted at 10
Yeah.
tons right now, but we can do some maybe additional warning signs, something else to.
Okay.
I'll look into that.
All right, thank you. Well, we're at the point of other business. Commissioners, any other business for the good of Burleigh County? I did think so too.
You're hesitating, you're hesitating. Don't hesitate.
Please do it.
We are adjourned.